I am calling this May meeting of the AMSA Board of Trustees to order at 6:42. We do have a very full agenda today. We're going to go through, so let's just review briefly. In chair business, we do have Ms. Waldron here to do the English department overview. So we've been enjoying having all of the department chairs speak. Rick is going to give an update on strategic planning. I think we actually have to vote on those priorities. We'll do a very high overview of the family and faculty survey results, and we can discuss collective bargaining. I'm going to come back to that. Chris actually asked me to move up the development committee report because Mark Vital is here, so we'll be able to do that also at the beginning, but I don't know where Chris is. Chris is right there. Perfect timing. So we'll move that up. And then we'll go through each of our committee reports. Of course, we're looking to approve the 2018-2019 budget at this meeting. And then we will go into executive session to talk about litigation strategies and consider the purchase and lease of real property. We will be doing contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and because doing so in open session would be detrimental to our position. So one question I have, Liz circulated the memorandum of understanding that was reached between the collective bargaining task force and the Teamsters. And so I wanted to know if people felt comfortable voting on that, or do you want to discuss? There's nothing in there that is different than what we really discussed in the past, right? We're just, it's just written.
There's one typo, though, that never got corrected.
A typo in the MOU?
Yes.
Is it a substantive one?
Periods versus hours.
That didn't get changed?
Did not get changed.
He said, Joe said that it was written as hours in the last one, and he wanted to keep it as hours.
But it's written as periods. Is it, so it was the opposite? It was written as periods before, and
He said he was going back to the hours, which was the original wording from the last contract.
Where is that?
page 3,
Okay.
top, under personal. Yeah, personal and which one is it? Hours of work.
So is that periods or hours?
It should be 20 hours of instruction per week.
We could just substitute that page, but
Well, then we can
discussed
also vote, oh, hello. We just barely started. We can also vote on either one of those, if that's okay with people. I guess the question is still on the table, do you want to discuss an executive session, or do we feel like there's enough here that it'd be comfortable voting?
I feel there's enough. I don't know about others, but
I think the challenge is the exact wording that we'd be voting on, because we can't alter the memorandum of agreement. We can take it as is. We don't have any ability to alter it, is my understanding.
Oh.
Would you like me to get the original contract upstairs?
The actual full contract?
Yeah, I have it upstairs.
Yeah. We better do that. All right. So pending that.
I mean, the other option we could do is to take a vote, or sort of a straw vote in favor of the spirit of the agreement without approving the contract.
But are we going to have to?
But then we'd have to vote
We're going to have to
anyway.
vote anyway, but the
then we'd have to vote again.
challenge is that we can't vote until we have a final wordage, right?
Right. I think that's true.
yeah, I just know that it was discussed, so if we know which term is
Okay.
supposed to be in there.
Okay, let's come back to that. We can discuss that specifically, and we can discuss it at that time. Okay, are there any other changes to the agenda then? So it sounds like we can at least discuss it in open session. There's really no need to discuss it in executive session, because it's a technicality. All right. With that, let's look at the minutes from the last meeting, the April meeting. What?
You're not going to reconvene.
And we will not reconvene.
And the video.
Oh, yes, and the meeting is being videotaped. Thank you.
Can I ask, as people are about to, this relates to something we're going to do later, did anybody have a chance to review the minutes before this meeting? By any chance? Okay, two. Thank you. You'll get brownies at the end of it.
Getting brownies.
Sorry.
Okay, if there are no changes to the minutes, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Chris? Who seconded? Liz?
Liz.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, there is no public comment, so let's go straight to our faculty rep update.
All right, pretty short. A little bit, or mostly the same kind of things we've been going through the last couple months. So we're officially in this period of endings as AP exams have been completed at this point in the year. So those classes are starting to wrap up or have wrapped up. Additionally, our seniors' last day is this coming Wednesday. So the teachers who have seniors in classes are in the process of doing their final grades and collecting all that needs to be done for them to graduate on the 8th. This especially, just want to recognize our senior advisors at this time, Bethany Bartolini and Christy Jagalski, because they are really pressed to do a lot at this point in the year with just coordinating everything from prom, which is tomorrow night, to graduation, to the senior awards night and everything that goes into that. So just definitely thank them for the extra work that they put in at this point in the year. Beyond that, the other classes are also obviously wrapping up. We're at our midway point of the final term of the year, so same kind of thing as usual, just checking and making sure students are caught up and ready to conclude the year. And then beyond that, we're already starting to look at next year. Teacher schedules have not been released yet, but that will be done hopefully shortly. And some conversations have gone on about grade level coordinators. Those have already been decided. And people have started brainstorming things for next year and kind of looking back on this year. So definitely in that reflective concluding phase of the school year. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So short and sweet today.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
Any questions? Jill?
So mine is short and sweet also. I just wanted to comment on awards night. That went really well. It was excellent as usual. The seniors were great. It was just really, really well done. The only questions that have come up recently from parents are with regard to the facilities, more just the precedence of projects and timing. I think a lot of parents have expectations of things happening sooner than they probably will, but, you know, just trying to keep those expectations in order or low. And then realistic. And then I haven't heard anything, but I can only imagine that school safety is going to be or is another issue, but I personally haven't been contacted, so I just know that's probably out on everyone's radar with the most recent shooting. So, and other than that, I haven't heard anything bad or good. No news is good news.
Hopefully no news is good news.
Everybody's worn out.
Yeah, I guess it's the end of the year, yeah.
Okay. Wow, we're speeding through our agenda. We just went through 25 minutes in 5 minutes. It's great. All right, Dr. Lewis.
Okay,
AP report.
excellent. We will get copies for, I don't think it's in your packet.
No, we
So-
did not make copies of these. I was making so many copies that I didn't think to do yours, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
So we'll just have to listen to you.
Well, pay attention.
We'll pay attention.
Please pay attention,
Yeah.
man.
later.
No worries.
It is on, board on track.
Okay.
It's, yeah, well, there's no worries at all. So we have some short, quick updates, and a larger discussion about core values too. Also have some very good news. The good news, the great news, is that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has elected to remove all conditions on AMSA.
So you got the confirmation.
We got the confirmation. So our school is now in good standing with the state, and it's a wonderful to hear that. When we heard the news, we all screamed and yelled and high-fived. So thanks to our teachers and our counselors for their unwavering support and commitment to our kids. Thanks to our parents for their support and advice. Thanks to our students for their hard work and all of their smiles. And thank you to each of you, our board members, for your encouragement and your commitment too. The decision that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education took and all of the achievements that we've been able to earn over the past year or so has always been the result of a team effort. It's all of us working together, and as long as we continue to do that, there's nothing we can't do. So thanks to everybody. It's really great. So a couple of short updates. Last week was a very busy week. We had senior awards night. Big thank you to Lynn McCluskey and Ann Richards, who are not here, for all of their hard work organizing that night. Thanks as well to Christy Jagowski and Bethany Bartolini, who I forgot to thank in the last board report, for all of their hard work. They're senior class advisors with the class of 2018. Also last week we had orientation night for new students and new parents. A big thank you to Linda Edwards, our registrar, for organizing, successfully organizing the orientation for our kids and our parents. We had lots of fun-filled activities with the kids, lots of pizza. When Miss Lindsay and I walked about, we encouraged all the kids to eat as much pizza and cookies and sugar as they could, so when they drive home, their parents could enjoy their kids. Just load up on sugar. So the goal of the orientation was, it's kind of twofold. One was to, the social side of it was to help the little ones start forming friendships, coming from many different towns, so that when they do come to AMSA, they'll be able to look across the table and see someone that they know, which has a big, large impact on their success at our school. It was also to provide information to parents, an overview of the curriculum, an overview of the athletic program, the guidance department, and life as a sixth grader, which Miss Murphy was able to provide. And we also discussed our new core values too. This week, also very busy. Last night we had a absolutely amazing arts night. I heard there were more people last night's arts night than there had been before, which is great. Big thank you to Sarah Preston and our fantastic art teachers, Mr. Morgan, Miss Cloutman, Miss Norton, and Amelia Terrell, for helping organize that, all their hard work that they put into that, and all their effort into teaching our kids art. It's fantastic. Thanks to Miss Bowen, too, for leading the chorus. Ed Harlow, who is our band director, and Joanna Lauderville, who leads our string ensemble. We are a math and science academy, but we value very much music, and there's certainly lots of relationships between the ability to perform music well and the ability to do math and science and many other subjects as well. So it's great to see all of the artistic and creative talent that our kids have. Next week is also going to be very important. Tuesday is a big day. On Tuesday, the 29th, our staff will be voting on the collective bargaining agreement that you have before you. We hope that our teachers will see this agreement as a part of the board's commitment, part of the administration's commitment to creating a school where talented people want to come, talented people want to stay, and talented people want to grow. A commitment to the retention of our teachers, and a commitment to creating a school where everybody feels welcome, everybody feels they're part of a community, and a school of, to use a phrase that Tom Azaredo once used, a school of mutual enlightenment, a place where we love to be, a place where we love to learn, and we love to grow together. So we are very much looking forward to that vote on Tuesday. And then one last really short update. Graduation is upon us, so come one, come all to the class of 2018 graduation ceremony will be at the Hanover Theater, Hanover Theater for Performing Arts in Worcester, Friday, June 8th at 6:30.
Board members respond on Board on Track.
Yeah. So it'll be sad to say goodbye to such a wonderful class, but we are heartened by the fact that we have such young, wonderful sixth graders who will be coming very soon. So we hope to see all of you there on June 8th. So those are the short updates. A bigger update has to do with core values. So at the last board meeting on the 26th, the board ratified the core values that were generated through that very open, hopefully what was perceived as a very open and collaborative process with our teachers, students, staff, parents, and board members. And as you probably recall, the core values that were approved are modeling integrity, pursuing your excellence, and fostering community. So why are these values important? Why have we gone through this process? Why do we have core values? Several really important reasons. Our core values give us a greater and clearer sense of purpose. They are our guiding lights. They are our North Star. Our core values also are important because they can unite us. After years of constant change at our school, having a guiding star, or guiding stars in this case, can bring all of us, board members, parents, teachers, and staff and students, together. Our values are also important because they can provide a constant and ever-renewing sense of mission. Integrity, excellence, and community are not static values, once achieved, never change. They are values that require constant nurturing, constant vigilance, and constant commitment. Each and every year we graduate one class of students and welcome another. Each and every year our new students and our new staff are introduced to who we are and what we always want to be: a school of integrity, a school of excellence, and a school of community. So how do we make our core values meaningful? How do we make sure they become more than words on a wall? That's the last thing that we want to happen, where we go through this long process of creating these wonderful values, we stick them on the wall, and then somehow, some way, we hope that they stick, literally and figuratively. Elle and I believe that the answer lies in holding ourselves accountable to our values. If we really mean what we say, then we need to hold ourselves accountable to our values. So since we last met, we drafted a plan, a very, very rough draft, intended to explore ways that we can match and measure our core values to our mission and our accountability plan. So we have, two really important documents. The most important document is our charter, and our charter defines a mission. Another really, really important document that has a lot of meaning to the state is the accountability plan. And now we have our core values. So Elle and I thought it would be really helpful to try to figure out the relationship between the mission, the accountability plan, and our core values, and figure out ways we can measure ourselves by our core values in a way that is consistent with our charter and with our accountability plan. So our draft, which we will distribute, it is up on Board on Track. And some of you have seen, I know the Ed Committee has seen it. The draft is titled The Future of AMSA, and it is, you will all see it very soon. It has been shared with the staff, has seen it. The Education Committee has seen it. And once you see it, what you will see, it's about a 6-7 page document. The first page begins with our mission, that we are a school that celebrates knowledge, where all children of all backgrounds and all abilities can excel in all subjects. The next page contains our core values: integrity, excellence, and community. And then you will see an attempt with each of those core values, integrity, excellence, and community, to figure out what are ways that we can measure integrity, what are ways that we can measure excellence, what are ways that we can measure community, to hold ourselves accountable to those values. So I'll just give you a couple examples, and then once you have the document, you can really dig into it. So measuring our values: integrity. Integrity meaning truthful in our work and caring in our relationship. So some ideas about that include teacher and counselor retention rates, premised on the idea that staff would stay at a workplace where they feel respected. Parent and student satisfaction surveys, which I know we'll be talking about that tonight, with questions centered on feelings of respect, feelings of follow-through. In terms of honesty, very important, academic integrity, perhaps tracking reports to the deans and the vice principal on plagiarism and cheating in classes. These are all just ideas. When it comes to excellence, the big goal there is to create a school where the joy of learning is embraced, where working hard is embraced, persevering is embraced, creativity and innovation is embraced. The idea of constantly striving to improve is embraced. So lots of various measures could go into that, related to clarity of communication, a strong academically focused curriculum, teaching and counseling excellence, strong special education, reading support, and EL programs, AP scores, MCAS scores, SAT scores, college acceptance rates, and the DEAS site visit reports and our charter renewal. Once you do see the document, you'll see there are some questions asking, are there measures that are missed? Are there measures that might be relooked or revisited? And this is particularly true when it comes to the academic side of it. Our existing accountability plan has specific measures for AP scores and access, MCAS scores, SAT scores, college acceptance rates. Just the attempt here is to start a conversation whether these measurements are good, should they be revised, should they be tweaked, and whatnot. So you'll see that. And then last but not least, how would we measure community? Community being defined as being good citizens, helping each other, appreciating and celebrating diversity and collaborating. Several different ideas for measurements could include tracking of bullying incidents, student surveys, staff surveys, very robust guidance department support, a strong mentoring program, and other steps as well. So once all of you have that, I hope everybody gives it a really good look. The point of that draft is really just to start a conversation. We have our core values, but there's a lot that needs to be done next, which brings me to the last part of the report, which is our next steps. So we hope that the draft that Ellen and I put together generates a very, very rich and fruitful conversation. And we need to really hear from the entire community, how do we hold ourselves accountable to our values. And I think that just as a process of creating the values, it was very important so that everybody's voice was heard. I think the process of figuring out how we hold ourselves accountable is also really, really important. If people feel that they're part of that process, I think they will be more likely to buy into the process. So hearing from the entire community, board members, parents, teachers, staff, kids, all very, very important. Second, to embed our values in AMSA, we really need to infuse them in everything that we do, not just on a wall. They will be on a wall, but they need to be more than on a wall. They need to be the air that we breathe. They need to be infused into our daily conversations with our colleagues, our lessons and conversations with our students and our parents, our interviews with prospective employees. And they need to be reflected in our basic documents, be that the accountability plan. This past week, Ms. Lindsay and I met with Cheryl Lower from Fulcra Consulting, who's done a great job leading us through this entire process. And she had some really great ideas about things that we could do to help embed our values. Several ideas that she had include promoting and reinforcing our values through consistent communication, letters, videos, would just unleash Michael Finkel. That's really kind of the only thing we need to do, is just to unleash Mike, and it'll be taken care of. Daily, weekly, and monthly messages, conducting PD around our core values to develop a common understanding as to what the values actually mean. What I might think they mean might be different than what somebody else thinks they mean, so we want to develop a common understanding. Exploring ways to incorporate our values into our core documents, which we just mentioned, faculty observation forms, parent and faculty surveys, our accountability plan, and exploring ways that our PD program, mentoring program, special education program, and EL programs can reflect and reinforce our core values. So we really, Ellen and I are really gung-ho about our core values, and we really want to make this part of our culture. These are the values that they were not picked from on high, they came from all of us. So it's now incumbent upon all of us to hold ourselves accountable to these values. So our work really has just begun. It's not the time to rest on any accomplishment. Every day is day one. And to give a quote from the great Winston Churchill, this is no time for ease and comfort. It is time to dare. Thank you.
So first of all, I want to express thanks to you and Ellen for that great news with the Dease conditions removal, because I know that you have talked with them back and forth and rebuilt a relationship that was not always as strong as it could be. So
And a big thanks to Sarah. She works nonstop.
Sarah absolutely
and
has always
just
been that
constant, and she's really the key person who's built that relationship with the department.
And
Yeah.
thank you, Sarah, because Sarah has always been the one that's that primary relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's good. That is actually very good news. You know, we were on conditions and extended conditions and extended conditions for a long time, so that's a great.
Yeah, Sarah just tells us what to do, and then we, you got it, Sarah, we got it.
Does anyone have any questions?
Just had a comment on the embedding values. I don't know if I missed it, but also emphasizing the core values in the recruitment of board members.
Yes.
Oh, great. There you go.
One question that just came up at the Ed committee meeting was just how are they going to be rolled out to parents and teachers and that sort of thing. So, and again, to your point, to make sure that everybody's sort of on the same page with them and has the same understanding.
Right. Yeah, we've sent that document to the whole staff now, and we've asked for feedback, and we'll be meeting with department chairs who are gathering the feedback from the staff. We'll be meeting with department chairs before we head off into the summer. And part of that process of listening as to how they want it measured will include a conversation about how they would like it rolled out. You know, we will get the values out, and so people will see them, will know them, will become comfortable with them, and I think we really want to hit the ground running when we start this next academic year, and really have a step-by-step process for how we are going to do it.
Are we looking for substantive comments now, or are we going to have a further discussion
For the draft?
at a time? Yeah.
No, that would be at a subsequent time, right? I mean, if you have an immediate reaction, I would raise that now. but
Well, I think it's great. I had two thoughts about the accountability on the values. One is to try and keep in mind using measures that give you hints about what to do better, and don't just tell you whether you made it or didn't. So, formative versus summative. And the second, especially for some of the harder to measure things, is that you could take and this is kind of something I would expect Mike Glass to talk about, but take a project that you agree is going to move a value forward and measure the way you execute that project. So pick a few things that are important and really look at them, instead of trying to concoct a set of measures that are going to cover all the territory.
Right.
So to that latter point, which is a great point.
You didn't see my look.
Good idea.
Didn't see where I was talking.
So to that point, and we'll touch upon it when we talk about strategic planning. So we do have a 10-year goal that tries to get at an aspect of that. So we can talk about it a little bit. But it's a great point.
Chris, can you just, the first thing that you said, can you just, I didn't quite catch it. Can you just run that again?
Sure. Measures that give you kind of corrective, more real course-correcting feedback, rather than just, did you do the job or not after the fact.
Success or failure.
Right.
Not just yes, no metrics, but
Yeah.
where can you?
I got it. Thank you.
And if I could just make a general comment, it's like oh boy, I don't know how many of us have been in organizations where you set up core values, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put them on a
Okay.
shelf.
Yeah, put them on a shelf, and it's like so clear
Yeah.
that, just as you were talking, and just layering all this stuff that's associated directly with the values, it's like so refreshing and great to hear. And I'm like so excited that we're going to be able to use these over the long term to guide us. So
Well,
it's
actually,
exciting.
I'll tell you, I was at the senior awards night, and Mike Naraki was already quoting them
Oh,
in
that's
some of
he
his
did, he
speeches.
did, yeah.
So it was nice to see that even though they're just being rolled out, they're
Yeah.
already starting to sort of gain momentum.
Fantastic.
One measure is how many times a week do you hear them mentioned?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's a good point.
More is better.
More is better.
Question and a comment? First, the question for you and Ellen would be, how would you like to receive feedback on the draft?
Any
Would
way, shape, or form.
Email be appropriate? Just we could send
Email,
it to you two?
one-on-one meeting, whatever you like.
All right.
The more the merrier.
Sort of a comment from the financial side of things. The banks read this is talking about the DEIS clean slate. The banks read these reports when they're evaluating whether or not to lend money to us, and they ask questions as to, why do you have these challenges? What are you doing about them? And those were questions that multiple banks asked us while Lisa and I were surveying the banking field.
So having
Having a clean slate is a good thing.
Very good.
Is a very good thing.
Very good for us going forward. Yeah, no, that's interesting that they were looking at that. Yep. I mean, they're also looking for long-term sustainability of the school, so.
I'm sure that's also true for funders.
Yeah.
Actually, that's true.
Yeah.
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 For potential donors. Organizational viability is definitely,
Yeah.
we're charged with. Okay, let's move to the first item of chair business, and we will ask Ms. Waldron to come up and give her presentation.
Just gonna make sure my computer's displaying what I need it to. Just
Okay.
a second.
Yep, super. Okay, while she's doing that, I will do one appointment, which is also under chair business. So we do have, we're creating an executive director evaluation task force because we'll start the process of pulling together Dr. Lewis's review for the year. And so I'm going to appoint myself and Rick Kamal and Liz Saul to that task force. Okay. So that is happening.
So we can have a moment of silence for Philip Roth.
Okay, Mr. Smith would be angry if we didn't. Does this count? I have to fight with this now.
I don't
Is this picking up on your sheet?
It's not.
Can I stand here?
Yeah, I don't
Use my teacher voice.
Oh, use your
Yay, here we go. All right, so I'm Alex Waldron. You already know that. You have that on your list. But on the table in front of you, you should have two documents. One gives you an overview in a sort of plain format on a single sheet of 6 through 10, and that was this year's changed and adapted curriculum. And then the other document that you have is a curriculum map guide from 11 through to 12. The only things that you'll see missing from here are the electives. That's largely because we've started to move them in and out every other year from next year onwards. So it seems unnecessary for this meeting. Okay, so a little bit about how we design the curriculum in English. Generally speaking, for 6 through 8, we design it such that chronologically it mirrors what history are doing. So you'll see noted on the 6 through 10 sheet which of the issues that history is covering we're trying to align with in each case. You'll see that in brackets underneath. After that, 9 through 10, it becomes a mixture of chronology and topic and theme. So that's where it starts to cross over. You'll notice some mismatch in time and era, but it might, in brackets, cross over with the themes and the topics that are being covered. That's because the range of literature that we'd like to cover doesn't necessarily box itself into neat little year packages by the time we get into high school. So we tend to align it in a mixture of those ways. Then when we get into 11 through 12, we really are just thematically linking. 11, we do cross over with the survey of American literature, so some of the same issues as the history department are there. But certainly in 12, we're then all for ourselves by that point. a little bit more about how we understand the context, they understand the social aspects associated with it, and so we're re-separating those things from next year. Glamorous assistant, could you change the slide, please? So that's just one of the changes that we're making next year to try and challenge the aspirations of the brightest of our students. And the other two things that you see on the screen there, we are changing as well. So AP Literature previously has been available to any year group, as has AP Lang. We want to separate it out. The reason for us doing this is we had 7 students take AP Literature this year and 55 took AP Language. There is some strange preconceived notion that it's easier, I think, amongst students, and they are horribly disappointed when they get there to find the reading load is exactly the same. So to try and level this out, we split it so that from this year, 11th grade will be able to take literature and 12th grade to take language. That will, as of the year after next, hopefully have balanced it such that we've funneled the kids from 11 through to 12, and we have a greater spread of classes. The third thing that I've put up there was a bit cheeky of me, because I know that we're in discussions, he's laughing. In English, I'm really, really keen that everything that we deliver and offer is academically appropriate for AMSA's aspirations, which sounds like, yes, that's obvious, but there are things that we give credit for, such as yearbook, which I feel may be better done as perhaps an advisory. And so we're looking at reshaping the offerings that we have. Not sure how that would look, but that's why I put reassess rather than actually doing it, because I do need the blessing of management.
I have a question about the AP Lit and AP Lang. So I understand, you've explained why they're being separated. Why that order? Because I understood that a lot of other schools nationwide do it the other way around.
You're absolutely right, they do. This crosses the norm.
Yeah.
There are 2 reasons for us doing this. One was a practical numerical reason, in that most of the students that this year, that huge balloon of AP Lang was actually mostly 11th grade. And so for us to do it the other way seemed counterintuitive. But then when we sat down and really thought about it, if we're preparing students to be successful in AP Literature, through 6 through 10, we've been drilling them on analytical writing, critical writing, which is a natural progression to AP Lit. The rhetorical aspects of things, they need almost a higher and different way of thinking, and they can cope better when they're older. So that's the justification. Glamorous assistant?
Can I ask you a question? I've got a
Yes, of course.
So could you just go back to the previous slide? So does it make sense to announce this for not next year but the year after? Like, I think about individuals who now they're going into 12th grade and the only thing that's available to them is AP Language, but they don't, now they don't have a chance to do literature. So I just wonder, did you talk about the idea of giving folks one more year to get settled?
Yeah, we've grandfathered it.
So you did, great.
It's a transition, I forgot to mention that,
Yeah, okay.
apologies. The 12th graders are allowed for this year only to do either one of their choices.
Okay.
And the 11ths only have literature.
Okay, thanks.
So that helps to funnel it through
Also,
smoothly.
of course, correct.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, it's fair enough, that sounds good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so in line with what you were just talking about, actually, about pursuing your excellence, this is English's, there you go, score 1 point. This is English's version of doing that, achieving that. Our department mission is now to push every student towards being an expert writer. And what we mean by that really is that even if they're not scoring A's all across the board, they'll be their own expert writer in their own ability level. And to do this, we've done several things. The first thing is that we've always had talented teachers in the English department, and we know that. But these last 2 years, we've especially sought out people who are literature and writing minded. So all our recent intake, just to keep that going, because we really do have some experts within our field. And we want to retain that. So we've actively looked to keep that up. We found that there's a challenge for us between 8th grade and 9th grade writing. And it seemed like, I think this might be in other subjects too, where they seem unready for the challenges that are presented to them and expected of them when they reach 9th grade. And so what we're trying to achieve here is that 6 through 8 now have a new set of writing skills focuses, whichever one you want to use. And that is displayed on, I think, Glamorous Assistant, the next slide. There it is. It's a bit teeny tiny, I apologize, but you can just about see down the left-hand side the main areas that we are asking in our brand new rubrics, all of our teachers, to help them specialize in. This document is used as an overview for an entire research or critical essay. So the idea is that a teacher could specify just 2 or 3 of these elements for one assignment if they're trying to build mastery and skill in a particular area of critical writing. And so recently we rolled this out, maybe only 2 weeks ago, and asked everybody to use this document every time from now on as a trial. And we will get back together in our department meetings regularly, and we will norm or standardize. So we've already started sharing what we think A grade looks like, and then we practiced using this to see if our baseline is actually where we think it is. I think only by having a shared understanding of what makes an A, what makes a B, a C, only then can we know that we are consistently teaching kids how we want them to write through 6, 7, 8, and then into 9. It stops the shock factor, and hopefully it actually makes them genuinely expert writers by the time they leave college ready. Next slide, please. Okay, so as part of our consolidation to approaching writing, there's a few other things that we wanted to do. I've already talked about the second there, but the first one, sharing expertise. As I was saying, we do have some amazing writers in our department. So we've started asking them to teach each other as part of meetings. So we had Mr. McDonald, we had Mr. Smith doing the last ones, and they gave us some tips and tricks, teacher to teacher, how you might scaffold things, how you might push writers and help them edit, to peer review, all the methods that they use to make expert writing happen. The third one there, kind of an ugly word to a lot of people. Traditionally, certainly in recent decades, there's been a push away from teaching grammar explicitly. And I think that's a shame. If you don't know the mechanics, if you don't have a shared understanding of the vocabulary needed to talk about grammar, you can't fix grammar, which means you can't use it, you can't edit it. And so I have asked everybody who teaches 6 through 8 explicitly at least one time a week to teach an aspect of grammar that they've seen is perhaps troubling their particular class. It still happens in the upper school, but I haven't been so prescriptive. Teachers there have the flexibility to react to what they see as a problem in the writing that they're receiving from their students. The fourth one there, we are trying to expand our use of source libraries such as JSTOR, the other kind of humanities-based databases that are out there and free for use through the Boston Public Library. The reason for that is we've always done research projects. That's been a central tenet of English forever, but we haven't really dedicated much time to just learning ways of searching for things, using the capital and, putting things in brackets, using synonyms, all these tricks. So we're actually spending time trying to get their ability to craft these amazing sophisticated papers using these databases. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's where I try and sell you what would be nice to have and what we're trying to develop in the future. Okay, so next slide, please. Here are 2 things that we're trying to do to make immersive learning happen. There's never really been English trips, except for the theatre occasionally. We've sometimes done that, and that's great. We will continue to do that. More if we can, if it's not disruptive to the school environment. But for the first time, we're actually going to try an English overnight, week-long trip. This was the idea of our new recruit, Mr. Hill, and he wanted to take the AP thinkers. They don't even have to be doing AP, but maybe we will inspire them to do AP literature. EF do a tour to the UK where they take you to the sites of inspiration for some of the literature that's on the examinations. So they can hear it read and they can see the setting and they can practice writing. Pretty excited about that idea. Next slide, please. Number 2 thing that we'd love to do. We want to foster a growth mindset. What we mean by this is helping students to understand that getting it wrong doesn't just work for things like math and science and experiments. Writing is also an experiment, and it's a revision process. We tend to get a draft, it'll be given to us, and they'll wash their hands of it, and then they don't want to edit it any further. But crafting writing is a mastery process. And so to do this, we want to put a document camera in every classroom. Those are very cheap. I can put them into the English budget very easily. And those are the things where you can just zoom in on someone's writing that they've done in class right in front of you. And you can collectively look at it, and you can pick it apart, and you can edit it live, so they can watch the process. We also want to teach proofreading and revision skills. One of the ways we've done this is that 6th grade is changing slightly next year. They've always had this strange 1.5 block, where every other day there's a double. And it only happens in 6th grade for English, no other grades. We thought, what do we do with that extra half, that extra lesson? So we're making a study skills curriculum. It'll be labeled differently on their timetable. It'll show up on their schedule as study skills. They'll know to expect that. And guidance are going to team up with us to come and guest teach for those skills as well. Yeah. So the last one. One day, it was just a kind of... I wanted to leave you with a really nice dream in the ether. I know there used to be a library. We clearly don't have space. You may have seen that we built, mostly thanks to Mr. MacDonald actually, a temporary honesty library where the library used to be. It's like a ghost of a library. Little green stickers, and kids can just come and take and leave books as they wish, just to try and foster some reading spirit. But one day, who knows, maybe there could be a research assistant librarian that could help with all those things. You would love it too. I can see it on your face.
Absolutely.
History,
Speaking to me.
Wonderful. I want to leave you with that idea. That's it. Thank you. I will take questions.
Are there questions or comments?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So first question,
Yes.
first comment is the passion is contagious.
I hope so.
So thank you for that. I want to go to the UK too. But also, we heard, and it's great to be hearing it from different departments. One thing that I think makes AMSA stand out is the cross-pollination between the departments. And we've heard a lot of examples of that over the last couple of months. Do you have any comments about that happening with English?
Yes, actually, there is a course. He's nodding at me. It's very exciting. Did they already hear about this?
No, they don't.
No. Ooh, okay. So there is not just a dual cross-curricular course, but it's 3 different subjects in one course with me, Dr. Duray, and Dr. Lewis, all teaching in combination across our subjects. It's called the Vitruvian Man, and it's going to cover 4 key people through history who are scientific innovators. I'm going to cover the literature that they inspired and surrounds them. Obviously, you're going to cover the background, the society around them, and then, of course, we have our resident scientist expert to tell us why they made an impact in science. So we're pretty excited about that happening. That's a seniors-only course. I really do think that it should happen more frequently. I know that the history department is pretty keen, where possible, to collaborate with us when we're planning, etc., when we're looking at curriculum, and it should happen as much as possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Any other questions or comments? I have a comment. I'm very excited by the idea of the emphasis on writing, and just want to make the comment that, I think that scientists and people going, who are academics, I don't think they realize how much writing is required. The PhDs that I work with, in industry and in academia, these guys, they're writing grants like crazy, right? I don't think people realize, if you're going into science, how much you're writing grants. So those writing skills are really important. I think it's just too easy for kids who think, I'm a math science kid, I don't know how to write well, to discount the value of that. And it's actually very critical for their future success.
Great.
So
I would just say the exact same thing. I'm really happy that you're focusing on grammar. Really happy you're focusing on it. Just as an example, myself, I was a math kid, and I did English, minimal amount of English, minimum amount of writing. I took the classes that I would have to do the least amount. And when I started working in public relations, as a finance professional, I had a CEO and a mentor who was, grammar was her pet peeve. So if she did not receive something that was written properly, she would eviscerate you. And this is a CEO, and I was 30 years old, Grammar for Dummies. I went to the store, I bought Grammar for Dummies, I read that thing from cover to cover 4 times. And it helped me so much in my career, and again, a math person. So I'm so glad you're doing that. And my son still corrects me all the time on my grammar.
Great. I love it.
All the time.
I love it when they correct signs that they see. You're like, oh, Miss Waldron, I saw this sign, there was no apostrophe,
Yes.
it was awful.
Yes. Yes.
I read a really cool article the other day about Jeff Bezos and Amazon, and that he's been playing around with the idea at the executive level to get rid of PowerPoint presentations. And that folks are, did you read this article? And that folks are now required to create a narrative, to write a multi-page narrative about whatever they want to do. And they're beginning those executive meetings by giving folks 30-minute reading period to read all the narratives and then have a discussion. And that he felt that PowerPoints are just the obliteration of that, and what you really need to do is be able to influence through these narratives. So I just thought that's what's happening in the boardroom now at Amazon, so I thought it's interesting.
That's interesting. I'm going to use that. Thank you.
It's the article's right out there. if you Google it.
Yeah, and actually, Amazon's doing that, since inspiring us where I am, we're doing that too.
It's out there. It's interesting. Good articles.
If I could just make two quick comments, this was fantastic, and the passion, the excitement is contagious, it really is. I loved what you were sharing about treating this as an experiment, writing as an experiment, because it's so easy not to. I heard a professor just speak the other day about, writing is probably one of the most important skills, because it teaches you to think and really clarify your thinking and refine it and so forth, and that's through experimentation and so forth. So that's fantastic. And I love the other thing about visiting the UK and tying reality kind of outside of the classroom with this, because I think it can inspire some kids to no end. So that's fantastic to hear. Yep.
I love the look of the rubric that you have so far, because we've had a lot of similar conversations in the history department about writing in the same issues of grammar and just being able to write something more formal, and all the research stuff too is wonderful. And I don't know, Anders, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's a lot we can team up on.
I was going to say, let's collaborate.
Yes,
Yeah, let's collaborate, absolutely.
There you go.
Awesome.
Does anybody diagram sentences anymore?
That is a contentious issue. They don't, and they should, is my response to that. There are some of our teachers actually who take pleasure in that. Mr. MacDonald, unfortunately losing him, but he is one of those. Miss Rousseau is very good at it. Yes, there are some in there that take great pleasure in it because they see the value in it. That does not say that the others can't. It's not part of their normal practice. They prefer other methods. But yeah, I would like to promote that.
Takes you back to 7th grade.
I'll sign up for the class.
I just want to thank Ms. Waldron. She's a fantastic department chair, a great colleague to work for, an amazing and very inspiring teacher, and you saw that today. And she's also done a great job rebuilding the English department after years of much change, and she really has an absolutely fantastic and very strong department, and it's due to her relentless effort and incredible passion. So thank you.
All right. These have been really fun.
Fantastic.
Looking forward to next month when we get to hear about from our history
That one's a
department
little
chair.
sketchy.
Yeah. All right. Rather than moving on to chair business, I'm going to move up the development committee update. You requested that.
So first, I'd like to, Mark Vidal has been running the campaign at the school. He's with us tonight, so he's going to give us a 5-minute summary of how it's going. We're about 2/3 of the way through.
Okay.
So we'll hear from Mark and have a chance to ask him questions. And then I want to talk a little bit about the meeting we had last night.
Do you want me to?
I only have 3 slides, so
Okay.
this is going to be very, very easy. Or 4 slides, actually. If you,
I'll click. I'll be glad to click.
thank you.
That's it.
Okay, perfect. Just tell me when.
So as Mr. O'Keefe has already, first of all, thank you for inviting me again. This is a privilege and a pleasure. Strategies we wrote, some of this is we talked about at previous board meetings. These are the strategies that we have done so far. We have sent out, using U.S. mail service, a letter from Dr. Lewis and Ms. Ryan to all the AMSA families. We have updated our website and Plus portals so that families can make donations via either of those 2 modes. Well, we had to do the website because if Grandma wanted to make a donation, she wouldn't have a Plus Portals account, so we had to have both of those available. And we're still getting many of our donations through checks as well. Mike has been gracious enough to puts them at the bottom, I don't know why, I put them at the top, but his weekly updates, he always makes it, puts it somewhere about, you still can contribute to our campaign. We had 4, I think for community relations, as well as fundraising, we had 4 outstanding family letters that went out, one from Clinton family, one from a Maynard family, one from a Marlboro family, and one from a Hudson family. And we, every 4 or 5 days, we sent one of them out. I had 20, maybe, students help me over 3 nights. We called the families of AMSA and that hadn't already donated. And I think out of the ones we called, there was only maybe 3 they don't live here anymore, and hung up. But most of the families were very nice and appreciative that they were getting the call, and so that went very well. And the kids, I think it's important that our students get involved in these efforts. And then the thermometer, as I told you before, that is placed out on the window as you pull up. It needs to be updated. I haven't done it since Tuesday, that's what we've done so far. Strategies we have still to do include Mr. Bacala has agreed to write a letter, and he is unique in the sense that he is both a student, alumnus, and a teacher. So he is going to be writing a letter from all those perspectives, and he said he'd try to get that done this weekend, so that'll probably get out next week. I asked for a report of vendors, because we wanted to send them out to our vendors. We obviously purchased a lot of things from a lot of people, and the report came back. I can't remember what Virginia told me, but it was close to 100 pages. And wow. So we kind of fine-tuned it a little bit, and we're still working on that. But that letter, I personally will get. I already gave an example of it to Dr. Lewis, and we'll be sending out a letter to vendors. Hopefully, if next week's a short week, maybe even next week, if not first week of June. Chris and I already talked about contacting some past board members who would be good contacts for possibly donations as well. And like Dr. Lewis, I'm open for any other suggestions that anyone may have. You can tell me personally, you can send me an email, you can, smoke signals, I don't care, any way I can to tip over that stone to find a few more quarters.
So, and Mark, what's our current total?
Right, just at 40,000.
And that's against our stretch is 50, right?
Our stretch is 50.
That's good. That's not bad.
Great. Questions or suggestions? So I had a couple of things. One is that, so we're 2/3 of the way through and 4/5 of the way to our goal, so that's terrific. I think we should try and do something to energize this last stretch. And I don't know what that is, but try to give it some oomph at this point. I don't know if we've done an Ellen video or something just give it some extra push.
Thanks, Mark.
Mark talked about, we've got 15 or so former board members. I try to figure out a way that we could solicit Mike Glass both as a board member and as a former board member.
Nice.
For the campaign.
Wait a sec.
What I'd like to do is just to give us all a chance to get some skin in the game is, I'm going to circulate a list of former board members and ask everybody to think about, identify anybody that they have a relationship, give you a model letter to send, to change, and send. And ask you to do that. Not to make follow-up calls or anything like that, but just to make a personal outreach to former board members who are people that we know. And so I'll be orchestrating that through email as we come out. And then, Mark, anything else that you would like help from this group?
One thing that I think, Maureen Evans, many of you remember Maureen, she kept some solid records. And so I was able to put this chart together. But what I think has happened, if you noticed, she went from, saying 215, 6, if you look at the top row, it says 210 to 11. and it had a number. And then she switched down at 217 last year, she only put 217. I mean, just the date of 2017. And I think that, and I don't know this, and I can get a hold of Maureen, but I think that some of those higher numbers were like for the entire year. And I think it's important that you understand that, like, we have received various grants, like, we received, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leanna, but I think it was pretty close to like $10,000 or $8,000 from the Staples Foundation. So our parents go to Staples Foundation and says, we'd like for you to give us a grant. And if one parent does it, they get $1,000. And then if another one does it, so I think we got a lot this year. I think we got like 8,000, was it? 5,000? But so that number that you see at the bottom line, that's just since, I've been collecting checks, so this is during the annual giving campaign. It's not all monies received for fundraising over the entire year. Because, the checks, I would take, it would be a monumental, not impossible, but a monumental Herculean task to go back to all the check registers and to see what each check was written for. So this is, that number at the bottom is for our campaign, since the start of April.
And I think, we're going to talk about, the importance of data and how we need to, to get better at that. I also think that 217 number is wrong, 2017 number.
I think that was just the campaign. The number was higher over the entire year, but I think that was the number that Maureen had on.
Yes, but it was substantially different from what Leanna gave us short time after. So there's an issue with that.
Again, I think.
And it being so much lower than all the others, I think there is something wrong with that number.
I think we also need to remember, and I think it's 2013-14, that was 2 campaigns. There were one of these years, it switched from spring to fall or something like that, and so I think there was one that it was Roger's shaking his head. I think there was one that...
There was one year, I think it may be 10-11, where we did a fall fundraiser where it was a walk. It was over at Four Kicks. And then I think we did an annual giving campaign as well. But my recollection is that most times we did, the primary fundraising was the annual giving campaign, and it's always been done in the springtime frame.
No, it hasn't always been done in the springtime time. There was once when we tried it in the fall, and so I think 1 year it's double.
I know because 10-11 was my first year here. And that's when I first got here, I was amazed because we had 3 people in the development office. And the development manager was doing, remember we had a raffle for a red Mustang. We had a whole bunch of stuff all year long.
Right.
Yes.
These 3 individuals were trying to generate as much money. And they raised $61,000, which is great, but they also had 3 folks working development that year.
Okay, yeah.
So we're getting 40 with 1.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Not bad. Eddie's a handsome guy, I heard.
I have to.
Glamorous,
I got a
wasn't
question
that the
from a
word?
teacher the other day, and I guess this is for Anders. I don't know if you can answer. Is it possible to offer payroll deduction?
A payroll deduction for
For staff contributions?
I was wondering that same
Your
question.
payroll vendor, I'm sure, can handle it, and because,
Yeah.
and I was just thinking something to goose the home stretch, to say, and now announcing, you can do it for a few bucks a week.
Leanna, that's probably
Leanna,
something
is
to look
that-
into. Yeah. Check with payroll.
Check with your payroll vendor.
That's how we did the United Way campaign at Deloitte, and it's easy because you don't even miss the money. You never had it, it just goes out automatically, so.
Chris, are you talking about payroll deductions for just the average parent, or are you talking about the teachers?
No, for the
That
teachers.
would be to the teachers.
For our payroll.
If they wanted to make a donation to
Yeah.
the annual giving campaign.
Okay. Okay.
The average donation is way up. Right, so it's over $200 per donation compared to all the other years.
Well, there's all these matching grants from Staples, apparently. pretty substantive.
So I think we'll want to do a study of the numbers once we're done. And maybe we
Column
can-
D is interesting. Is that, so that's how unique families. Okay, so that's,
So that may be a dumb question. We were just saying that there's years that the number's larger because we had more than one campaign, right?
I think there was 1 year, only 1 year.
Only 1 year. Well, it still has a dumb question. If we get more money by having more campaigns, why don't we have more campaigns?
Wasn't here then, and...
Right, no, and I know this was a dumb question, but...
Yeah.
One of the things that came up last night, maybe you'll talk more about this, Chris, is the timing of the campaign. If we do have, maybe we do have 2 campaigns, but the great folks that you brought yesterday were mentioning how fall's usually a traditional time for a school to do it when everyone's fresh, they're energized, they're just coming into the start of the year. They suggested that that's a good time to kick off a
When I
campaign.
talked with the development manager at Parker, and Parker's already done, a relatively modest capital campaign. I think they raised, what did they say, Chris, was it like a $1.5 million or $2 million? Because they inherited a elementary school that was an army, on the army base. So they had to update roofs and update the furnace system and stuff like that. They do it all year long, but they have it in what they call phases. But it's a annual campaign. It's all year long. So, and that's not just a capital campaign. It's all year. When the doors are open, we would be more than happy to accept your check.
I was wondering that same thing, so that people could budget it more on a monthly basis, as opposed to just, they might give more if they were to give monthly versus giving just once a year.
Yeah.
Just
I think
another thought.
that actually does go to, and why don't we move on to the consultation that we had last night.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
So last night, we met with Peter Thomas, who is the Executive Director of Lifelong Engagement and Annual Giving at WPI, and Rick Tagliaferri, who is the former Executive Director of the Boston Arts Academy Foundation, who is actually just entering into a contract with a charter school in Dorchester to do a large capital campaign for a building. So these are both longtime professional fundraisers. Peter was formerly the Chief Executive Officer of the United Ways of New England. Rick is a longtime major gifts fundraiser. And I think, Anders and Rick and Ev and I were able to meet with them. Mark was had another obligation. Thematically, I think the structure of what they were telling us is that what we need to do, I think, is to look at, to start with, really kind of professionalizing our existing operation. And so the annual campaign, and that would be investing in training for Mark to go to fundraiser school, because such a thing exists. And there's a body of best practices, and there's a way to go about it. And then to really engage more deeply in getting to know who our donors are, who our prospects are, and really how we can approach that and how we can develop the relationships that we need in order to support an ambitious capital campaign. And they're thinking that we're nowhere near the point that we need to be at before we could do that, is that we are some distance away from being a viable candidate for a feasibility study. After the session, I plied them with alcohol, and actually the sense that I got from them was that we're a good 2-3 years away, if we do all the right things all the right ways, to being ready to engage a consultant to do a feasibility study for a capital campaign. So we have a lot of groundwork to do. So those were the major thematic points, and I'm going to ask Anders and Rick to.
So I think you hit those points, but I gotta say, as you were saying, they were saying 2 to 3 years, and I do agree it's going to take time. But I just think about today's meeting was like, the last series of meetings have been awesome, but today was like just, I don't know if you all were so inspired. Like, everything's coming together. And like, just like with this rapidity of, it's amazing, right? We're in compliance, we've got the values, they're actually getting enacted, we're just making so much progress that I do agree. I think in general, it would take 2 to 3 years, but I feel like with the momentum we're starting to see, I think it could be sooner. Honestly, with this school, I think it could be sooner.
What are the things that they think we would need to do before we were ready
Yeah,
for
I was
that?
wondering,
Like, what are the things that we're not doing?
So the understanding what the giving capacity is of our constituencies, who can afford to make us large gifts.
Right.
Beginning to establish a culture of philanthropy.
Yep.
Properly populating and developing a database of all of that. Constructing the board, relooking at the board, and particularly looking at the development committee and you want the development people to be people who have access to people who can make $1 million gifts and like to ask for it.
Like the 3, wealth.
Wealth,
work.
wisdom, and,
Yeah.
So those are some of them.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of, and we got into a number of specific items too. I mean, like they kind of put us through our paces on the case statement and had a lot of, valuable feedback, where I think we thought it was pretty good. And they really didn't think it was very good at all. But they gave us a lot of pointers to kind of shape that up. And in my conversation with them afterwards, they kept saying, yeah, but you have a lot going for you. And they had some different ideas about how we could use what we're doing.
Did you record that? And write it all down?
I took lots of notes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, again, the committee needs to meet again.
Yep.
But an idea that surfaced that I think we'll recommend is to try and get a consultant to spend some time on an hourly basis, and one of these guys will probably be available for that. So Rick Tagliaferri would be, to try and guide us through the initial stages, because in terms of, we originally talked about like hiring a major gifts development person, and that's, I think we need to understand how to move forward a bit before we go to that, particularly because, with development professionals, there's good ones and there's not so good ones. And the market for them is very tight. So, when I was doing it at United Way, I mean, we had several washouts in our chief development officer position, and that's, people in the business doing the hiring. So I think we have a little bit of ways to go to work that through.
And I think one other thing that was mentioned was, there's the giving by families, alumni, et cetera, but then there's also the corporate gifts, and that we could potentially be working on both in parallel to start learning now, rather than just getting mature in the kind of conventional donation space. We don't have to wait to start working on the corporate side.
So I was very encouraged by the content of the meeting, and I felt like there's a lot of work we have to do, but
yeah, lots of great ideas and advice from experts in the field. Ms. Lindsay and I definitely feel that we want to get going as soon as possible and full speed ahead, but certainly there is, as they stated last night, lots of work that needs to be done too.
Alumni parents is a major
Alumni
market
parents
for
is a
us.
major one, yeah.
The most important day of any student is their first day. So like alumni parents and and 6th grade parents are key segments.
Yeah.
And then numerous others, and how to go about segmenting them.
Yeah.
So we're all these gems and some hints about how to structurally put it all together.
No, I've certainly heard that alumni parents are, still want to figure out how they can stay connected in some way. Particularly our alumni parents, because, these are parents of like alpha, beta class, right? They're very, very invested in the school. So.
Yeah, I think we have an advantage there that our parents have go through this for 7 years. It's not a 2 or 3 year experience.
Yeah, it's a 7-year.
Yeah. So it's even more than a college experience.
Mark,
It's true.
Mark and Mike have just done some great work adding to our alumni section of our website.
I saw that, it looks great.
Which is good.
I forwarded it to my alum.
And we just had our 5th year alumni reunion with the beta class, which was wonderful.
What Peter Thomas would have advised us, hearing that didn't come up last night, but if you have 7 years to groom a lifelong donor, is that on day one, you are consciously developing the relationship with those parents, because those parents are going to be your lifelong donors.
That's interesting.
And even those students.
Yeah.
Those students, yeah.
So it's...
A team project, I'd just like to share. I agree with Chris 100%, but it doesn't mean like the ball doesn't keep rolling.
Yeah, we got it.
Today, Ms. Lindsay spoke at the Marlboro Rotary Club, and there were a couple bankers in there, and some of these folks, they know that we're a great school, but they really don't know what we're all about. And she gave an amazing, Mike helped, I helped, we all put our team effort in there and talked to the Marlboro Rotary, and that, so, today, one of our very grassroots nonprofits just got a $100,000 gift. They announced it at the Rotary from the Cummings Foundation, which is a large foundation here in Massachusetts. And Ellen says, we can get one. We should get one of them. I said, it needs one more zero.
We'll take 6.
Yeah.
7.
We're still out there. We're not going to wait. I mean, a feasibility study is definitely needed down the road, but hopefully
there's stuff that can be done
there's
now.
corporate gifts, there's local foundations that we can still, get to in the meantime.
Cummings made a gift in Marlboro?
What's that?
The Cummings Foundation made a gift in Marlboro?
Yeah. To a non-profit that's only been around for 3 years.
Yeah, they're out of Woburn.
Yeah.
And I didn't think they granted out this way.
They do it all. They
got a
do it
list.
pretty broad.
A comment to the question. So I think I'm very excited about the thoughts toward getting corporate or other non-parent donations. I think we've tapped the parents out pretty well between our annual giving campaign and the local sports and the PTO and clubs and things. I think our parents are giving a lot, and I think there may be more out there, but there's only so many times we can go to the well. That's the comment. The question I had was, did they have any insights?
Can I respond to that comment, though, for 1 second? No, and correct me if I'm mistaken, Chris, but my perception, talking to the other 2 gentlemen who were guests, they felt we could do a lot more.
They felt that our parent community probably has people in it who could, if they were sufficiently motivated to do so, make 7-figure gifts. We don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And that's then part of the science of all of this is figuring out, and they gave us some tips on what to subscribe to do this. Is it
They think some of our parents can do 7-figure gifts? Interesting.
That is interesting.
And there's
Trying to think of who those
parents are. Who would those people be?
Parents.
So it's doing the research on that. Is it who they are, who has means and inclination?
Yeah.
Is what they're studying. You look
One of
at
us needs to win the lottery.
And it's
We can
research
be the
that tells you
parents.
that.
We can be that parent.
So I do think that those parents do exist out there, but I think that a lot of the parents are not of those means.
Yeah.
And those are the parents that I'm speaking to, that
Yeah.
have given what they can,
Yep.
but I think the others do exist.
And if I could just share, so the school my daughter happens to go to, so if you look at the curve of the giving, so it's very few are at that top end, but the amount they give is so significant. Every dollar matters, obviously, but it's so significant, but it's a real challenge to have the expertise, I think for us, to get the expertise to figure out who they are and to cultivate them and so forth.
It occurs to me that we might want to do a session here on Development 101 for boards.
Yeah.
Because just to understand some of the,
Yeah.
like the pyramid, and you need 3 gifts of, some of the stuff that they were telling us last night.
That'd be helpful.
That's really standard fare for the field, is to get us grounded in how the business works.
Well, I think there's no question that, going forward in the next year to 10 years, right, development is a big focus for the board. There's just, that's going to be one of our big priorities.
Yeah.
The final question I had was, did our advisors have any comments toward getting a grant writer. That's a topic that's come up time and time again. Do they have thoughts or guidance in that area?
No. And I think what I can't remember if, sorry for that conversation or another one I was in yesterday, is that I think what they would advise is that a grant writer would be fine. A grant writer is not key. Is the key is individuals.
Really?
Because grants come and go, but individuals stick with you. And 85% of all gifts made in this country are made by individuals. Foundations are like 5%. So this all I think we just need to get grounded in like how this stuff all works.
But I don't know if it's a binary thing, or one or the other.
Yeah.
Right? And I kind of feel like Raul's comment was, why don't we do, I feel like probably the long-term strategy is to surround this approach with multiple things, a grant writer and a professional board, and all those things.
To generalize that question, I don't think the question's about a grant writer or about more help for the development person from the department staff.
So the question is, do we need staff?
Right.
The answer is yes.
Okay. That was longer than 10 minutes, but
Sorry.
it's okay. It was important, so we need to do that. So let's go back to chair business. Rick?
4 minutes behind.
Yeah, oh, now we're behind, okay. Rick, strategic planning.
So I wonder if it may be worthwhile to combine strategic planning with the 2018 BOT SMART goals also? And I'm like, yeah, so let's come, because there's a big intersection. And it says 30 minutes for the combined time. Let's see if we can do
Okay.
less than 15.
Okay.
All right. So just taking a step back in terms of the work we've done with Cheryl and so forth, we've got in place now our values, which is clear. We've got a set of 1 year of goals, which we worked on initially in January. We've got a set of 10-year goals, which we'll talk to shortly in a moment. And so I think, and we've got a mission. So we've got all these really big items that we need from a strategic perspective. I think one comment I would make is, as we were talking, I just noticed that we have a vision. I think we need to clearly articulate it, just as we've worked to clearly articulate our goals. We haven't really clearly articulated the lighthouse vision. We don't have a vision statement. So I think this is just a general off-the-cuff comment. We should have one, because that's telling us where we're going, right? Our mission is telling us why we're doing it, kind of what we're doing, why we're doing it. Goals are also telling us what we're doing, and our values are telling us how we're doing it. So I think we'll have a really clear picture on our strategic space if we can work on a vision statement. And I'm looking at you because you're great at vision. All right. So having said that, in terms of the 10-year goals, we took a cut of them was it when we met in March? And we have refined them somewhat, and so I wanted
We kept wanting to refine the big three.
The big three.
The big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's see if this will come up. Hello. This is flashing, that's flashing. Do we have some technical people here who could help?
That's a resolution.
Oh, you have an Apple.
Our lower resolution.
The remote over there, there's like a source thing.
Press the,
Is Mark still here?
press the question mark to display.
No, that's all.
Oh, that's helpful.
It looks like it's trying.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, well, I was taught I could do that, maybe. Are you pushing the search one or the source one? Yeah.
Might be your Apple.
Okay, I've done it before with this, but okay, in any event, maybe then I'll speak to them.
I hope I can get on there.
Oh, can you?
just because I'm going to be doing the budget later.
Do you want to try and then I can mail you these? Okay.
Since you're an HP.
So let's swap spaces. This 14-minute goal is going to be a little tricky here, but let's do the best we can. Oh, but it won't mail. So okay, so let's go through the 10-year goals, and I'm sorry, I'm going to verbally speak to them. The first one is inextricably weave AMSA's core values into our community by annually establishing at least one initiative and one metric to advance each of our core values. So this is guaranteeing for the next 10 years, we're focusing on getting those core values more and more into our DNA and into our culture. Okay. I can repeat it one more time just because it's such a long sentence. Inextricably weave AMSA's core values into our community by annually establishing at least one initiative and one metric to advance each of our core values. And I think a lot of what you spoke to in the blueprint goes beyond that, at least for the next year. So that's fantastic. Goal number 2 is set the standard for secondary education by transforming the way students learn and become a national model for dissemination. This is just a slight tweaking of what we talked about in March. And then the third and final one is achieve financial independence by building a deep and enduring pipeline fueled by 30% non-tuition sources.
So that doesn't sound like that's changed, right? That's
The
how
last
it
one
was
has not
before,
changed.
okay.
It's just tweaking of language.
So it's really the first one that changed.
Yeah, the first one has fundamentally changed in terms of it's now focused on making sure we're tying annual initiatives and metrics to each of our values.
I know we were trying to figure out how to get that tied to the values, right? Because that was a community goal.
I'm sorry?
When we talked about this in March, how did we frame that one? Was that sort of, we had a financial goal, we had the educational goal, and this one was sort of the...
It was actually focused on excellence, I think.
Excellence, yes.
It was just excellence, and it was like a rough, like, how do we make sure that 95% of our metrics were in the top 95%?
Yeah, that's right. We were trying to
that.
figure out how to say it. So it was an excellence, that's what it was.
Yeah, it was excellence, and now this has become much broader than that.
And you were trying to tie, and then I remember last month's meeting, we were talking about excellence being tied to the values.
Yes. Okay. So I don't know if folks have comments in terms of, do they seem like those are in alignment with where we want to be focusing the next 10 years?
I like it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I don't know, kind of procedurally, do we have to vote on these being our 10-year goals, or?
We should at least vote, that we want, that we're standing behind these words.
Yeah.
Because we want to figure out how to relay these to the whole community, right? We will need to roll out sort of the core values in our boards. These are the board's 10-year, board and the school, but that's our really long-term. It's kind of what came out of the strategic planning process.
Yep.
We do want to be able to communicate that.
Okay. So I don't know if it needs to be displayed in order for everybody to approve it, or?
Do you have email?
I can't connect here.
You can't get on wireless?
No, it's not, unless somebody has the password. I do. Okay.
I just don't want to say it out loud.
Yeah, don't say it out loud.
So while we're doing that, can I speak to the next item? And then we can come back to the vote. So the next item was, we got together to talk about, at the latest governance meeting, how do we improve decision-making? And so to that end, in the packets, there's a page. We won't necessarily go through the details now, and I would...
Also circulated in advance.
I'm sorry?
It was also circulated in advance several days.
So there were two areas we wanted to focus on for better decision-making. I'll jump to the second one first. So on the back side, the context is, for example, we had the administrative leadership team work in terms of informal negotiation for the contracts, with union contracts. And one of the challenges one challenge area was they were meeting weekly. We as a board meet monthly. How do we get feedback to them in a fast way? And so the discussion was, well, the executive committee can assemble very easily. It's only got 4 people. They do need to follow OML guidelines, but have them, go immediately into executive session, make a decision, or derive a consensus on guidance, and then deliver it to the working administrative team. And that would be the mechanism we could have for quick guidance. Now, there are going to be situations where we need the whole board to assemble, and in those situations we will assemble, but otherwise this can help facilitate quick movement. The second thing we talked about was how do we improve decision-making as a board ourselves. The aim is we ideally should be focused 90% on strategy. And we meet at the end of the week, at the end of the day, and as every minute passes, we're more and more fatigued. I'm looking at eyes that are very sleepy, some of them, even now. And so what do we do? And so we came up with a set of recommendations on how to do that. Again, people can review them offline, and we, within governance, want to just maybe tweak them a little bit. But we're thinking, can we become a lot more rigorous around time boxing, around certain practices to make sure we stay focused and also elevate to focusing primarily on strategic items. Now, having said that, a strategic item we discussed was, for example, when faculty members are presenting, that's really key for us to understand and to help the direction of the school. And there are a series of other things that some people may say, oh, well, do we just squeeze those out? No, we don't squeeze those out, but we manage them effectively, but we make sure we're making the most of that. I think another item, and we don't have to talk about it in detail, is we were toying with the idea of, do we have executive session before we have open session? And force us to be very tight in those meetings and come, in some ways, have mechanisms to be more prepared coming into those meetings. In fact, we should be all prepared coming even into this meeting. Everybody should dedicate 1 hour before coming into this with preparation so we can have these meetings very, very focused. So that was the nature of the conversation. Again, we'll come back with more detail. I would advise everybody, or ask everybody to review, and if they have feedback on some of these items that we do suggest in the handout, that would be great.
Deadline for that?
Before the next governance meeting.
Which would be?
Second Tuesday of June.
The 12th, I believe it is.
Yeah, we'll send out a reminder email.
So do you want to talk about any of that stuff now, or you just want it all offline?
Offline, for now.
I love committees solve problems, board makes decisions.
Yeah.
We've been trying to do that, have more of the work in the committee, but I think in the past, well, since I've been chair, we've even though a lot of work is happening in the committees, we still end up rehashing a whole bunch of the same things. And there probably should be a way to really push it down to the committee level.
Absolutely. And so in that context, the SMART goal, this is language around a SMART goal we thought for this particular decision-making goal was 90% of all BOT meetings will end within 110% of allotted time in order to achieve greater focus on strategic issues and enhance decision-making. 100% of board members will allocate 60 minutes before a BOT meeting and review pre-meeting packages prior to each board meeting. So if we do that, we can hopefully get much more focused and get things done quickly with the ability to make crisp, smart decisions. Okay. So more to come. I don't know, in terms of the SMART goal, though, do we want to vote on that too?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
If you want, I can just copy those from your computer to mine, while everyone's, maybe Lucy wants to start the board. I can just copy that, and then when Lucy's done, I can,
I think he can get on wireless.
I think I can get on wireless now.
Yeah.
So while I get on wireless to get the tenure goals up there, should we vote on the?
Yeah, let's vote on the SMART goal.
Okay.
Unless, does anyone have any objections? Do you want to talk about it? Okay, so let's, I'll entertain a motion to approve that one SMART goal.
Move that we approve.
The
one that's at the bottom.
The one that's at the bottom. Other page. No, we only have one.
Yeah.
That's the one SMART goal. That was the final one that was sort of missing that kind of came out of our annual planning meeting.
I'd like to second Chris with Roger for second.
Chris, Roger, all in favor? Aye. All right, that motion passes unanimously. Yay, now we actually have all of our board goals for the year. Okay?
Okay. I'm having a problem connecting.
Oh, okay.
Does anybody have a thumb drive?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, Richard.
Of course, Roger has it in his little packet with everything, with all those cords and everything else.
Thank you very much.
adapter.
I trust it has no viruses, malware, other such things.
He's got to hack into Harvard.
I had one that's never
Get all 3 kids in now.
Yeah, myself a degree or something.
Now, did you find that at a subway station or just hanging around there?
No, I think it's still in its,
Okay, I'm just kidding.
package.
Okay. So let me just.
While he's doing that, one of the things I noticed, especially with that SMART goal, is I like the fact that if you're going to go beyond the time limit, that 75% of the group has to vote, but we should probably time block that, so it's not, so if 75% of the group says, okay, we go beyond 10 minutes, and then the conversation goes a half hour. But so I would probably just say, can't go another 15 minutes, or something like that, right? And not to have to vote it and things like that, just have
I think it says by an additional 10 minutes.
An additional,
Oh, yeah.
does it say an
Yeah,
additional
by
10 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't read that, okay. then.
You'd have to revote to extend again.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I would just say, so you
So what
just, you
this
get
does-
one additional 10 minutes or something.
What it does mean is that we need to be a little more vigilant about setting the time on the agendas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? I mean, because the agendas are often, I mean, I tend to do them, only a couple of days in advance, and then, I ask for feedback, and
Oh, you're gonna go to me?
most of the time, I get very little
Okay,
feedback
there
on the
better not be any
agenda.
malware on here.
Yeah.
So we'll just have, that's what, it forces really the agenda building more.
Yeah, and to that point, because it speaks of like when allocating time, make sure you're allocating for presentation time, questions, and answers.
Yeah.
So it forces that.
A discussion, right?
Data strategy or goals?
Goals. I'd love to find out about the data strategy at your company. But then I guess we would have to be, what is it?
Yeah, we have to add it to
The
the
off-track
agenda.
card? We'd have to raise
Yeah,
that.
I really liked those, right, at the
Yeah.
strategic planning meeting. We should make those little cards.
In other
Okay.
words, a capability map.
Ah,
So
do I make this?
architecture diagram.
Oh,
yeah,
there we go.
should talk.
All right, so now we've got the words up in front of us, the 10-year goals. So, anyone want to make a motion to approve these as worded?
I'll make a motion.
I second.
Liz makes the motion, Lucy seconds. All in favor? All right, motion passes unanimously. This is great. We now have core values, we have 10-year goals, we have just finished our 1-year goals. A little bit backwards, right? But I feel like this actually really sets us in a good stead moving forward, right, for the next academic year.
Just a reminder, only because I don't know why it stuck with me. I think we said, and I don't know if we're revising those goals, but when we talked about our board goals before we had the strategy meeting, we talked about
Looking at them again.
Well, and a school motto.
Oh, a school motto.
That exemplifies the values. So,
Yep, so to that, maybe does it make sense, well, then we have two things we need to follow up on. One is a vision statement, and one's a motto.
What was the second?
Motto.
Motto.
School motto. You know what, those probably should be part of this broader, community.
Yeah.
right,
you know,
right. And it shouldn't be,
rounds up
yeah, and I
thing.
don't mean to imply that the board comes up with it.
Yeah, oh, no,
It's a
no.
goal for the board to.
No, the
ensure that we
process,
come up
to
with
make sure that the
Yes.
process happens,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because agree.
All right.
I'm trying to stick to the 15 minutes.
Are you, Rick, are you done with your?
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to family and faculty survey results.
Did you send that to me?
Yes.
I have Mike Glass down here, but is it Mike or is it Raul?
We'll
Okay,
tag
cool.
team it. So
Tag team, all right.
I can talk about the family one, and Mike will talk about the faculty one.
Okay.
So, to keep it short, I'm going to try to give 3 observations. So we reviewed the results from Panorama. We shared that with all of you, so it's in your package, the printed out report. The next steps, we're actually going to go through the comments, 3-point comments to make sure that, they fell to them. And just to be clear, for those that are not familiar with that, that means making sure that if there's any particular mention of any individual, we need to take that out, make it anonymous. And then after that, I believe that the board will be able to follow it out to the community. So First, in general, response rates, they were very similar to last year, the previous year, a little lower. And it'd be interesting to see, maybe through other comments, we can tell whether that had anything to do with the length of the, because we added some questions, we changed a little bit. But still, we get about 24% participation from the family, 65% from the faculty. So, you know, the number is similar to last year. So I'm just going to talk about the family survey. 3 observations there. First of all, positive feeling about administration and academics.
Yeah, great. That was
We're all
very high.
expecting that.
Very, very high.
And everybody seems to be very happy with the administration. I was curious, particularly because there was so much discussion on the academics. We had some questions about the idea of excellence and how important it was to balance that out and needs from the students and whatnot. The questions that were specific about that were actually very positive. Second comment about the fact that the family survey, we added a section and questions about the board and asking whether people understood or felt the board was doing the things that were important for the school or not. And I think that's actually Jill shared comes from the parents that the overall feeling is that people didn't feel strongly either way. So basically, my interpretation of that is that they don't really know what the board does. And that's important. I think some part of the discussion at some point we said, well, there might be families, especially in 6th grade and the lower grades, that are more used to a different structure from public schools, and that, the idea of a board of trustees for a charter school is very different. So I don't think it's negative that. So if you look at the ratings that had to do with the board, I think it's a little misleading when you have things that say not favorable. Actually, really, the fact that it wasn't favorable means that they may have been neutral. So there was a big portion of that in the board review question. So that, again, something to highlight.
Can I just make one comment on that? So we didn't have these questions in previous surveys, but I think if we were to give this question a few years ago, I think we would have seen much more in the disagree and strongly disagree.
That is actually true.
Based on other things we've seen in surveys.
Other feedback that we were getting,
Oh, and the disagree numbers are tiny.
Yeah.
It's the neither agree nor disagree that's...
Right, that's sort of what's driving
Right.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I guess a takeaway from that, and we talked about communication. I know there were some questions there about communications, but things that we could do about that is actually make that part of the onboarding process, making sure we explain what the board does, and make sure the community understands what we're here for. To me, personally, I just want to make sure if anybody says, "No, the board's dealing with problems that are not the most important problems," why is the board spending so much time in facilities, right? That's the kind of stuff that we didn't see that. All right, so, and the third comment were the new questions. So if you remember, we added some questions that we felt were not captured in the previous survey, but also that were particularly important right now. And those were the kinds of things that it's okay if we don't have the year over year, if we change that question next year, but we wanted to make sure we captured that today. So one of them was about the mission itself. So we actually, without saying anything about the mission, we actually phrased the mission in the question. And I believe the question said, school enables children of all backgrounds and abilities to excel in all subjects and advanced levels. And it was 80% favorable, meaning, more than half said that they agree, and then the 27% said that they strongly agree. So, 80% of the community believes that we are achieving what the mission says. So that was encouraging. That was one of the new questions. And actually, this might be just a personal thing, I also like to think as how many disagree, right? And again, it's 7%, but it's not we should think about what the 7% really mean, and maybe the explanation of that is in the comments. The other one was about teacher turnover, and it was 39% favorable. I think there's a big portion there that was neutral, meaning I don't know if teacher turnover is a big deal or not. But if you look at the flip side of that, about 25% felt that it's an issue.
Yeah, clearly.
So I think that is a large number.
Yeah.
That is a large number. That's also residual from
Right,
years.
but again, I think those are the kinds of things that we should track.
Could I just make one comment on that first one? I believe the school enables children, the mission, basically, do people agree? That's actually pretty phenomenal.
That's pretty good
That
number. Yeah, that
80%
was pretty
believe
good.
we're adhering to the mission without you asking that.
Right.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
That I thought was good.
Yeah, and I think it would have been different if we had asked, is AMSA adhering to the mission?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that implies that they know what the mission is.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
No, that was very.
So anyway, that's, I'll leave it at that. The last comment on the new questions, that we had something about physical condition of the school. That's the other one that I'd like to flip and look at the unfavorable aspect, because it was 28% people felt fell on the unfavorable side. And the question, just to be sure, the physical
Condition,
So my
facility,
child's-
facility.
Yeah.
So the question was, my child's school is clean and in good physical condition. So one way of looking at it, almost half it had a positive, so either agreed or strongly agreed. But also, if you look at the disagrees or strongly disagrees, it was 28%, which is about 110 families.
It's a lot.
That's a lot, right. So anyways, I was highlighting positive things and also wanted to highlight things we can work on.
This is why we're
Again, no
working on
surprise.
facilities.
Yeah. So, and I just kind of to Chris and Anders and everything here, back to yesterday's discussion, right? In terms of crafting a story and narrative.
Ooh.
These last 2 points are really important when you think about the need for funding a capital project.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Yep.
60%, obviously, if the people do not believe the facilities are adequate.
Yeah.
So Liz or Jill, anything to add? I know you guys were.
No, I think it's, I think the results paint a good story in certain areas and definitely have some areas where there's work to do. I don't expect this is any big surprise. But overall, I think it's certainly much better than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. So we're continued trend in the right direction.
I think that obviously the school will be able to take these and look at these in more detail, right? And some of these that are especially where it went down.
And I just want to say it again, the administration came up as, very positive, so.
Oh, yeah, that's very clear.
Not surprising, but I'm not going to miss any chance to highlight that and
Right.
remind everybody how great this is.
Yeah. And to that point, administration, which was a big issue in the past.
Yeah.
And school climate, huge issue also in the past. We had abysmal numbers in the past. I mean, they were like in the equivalent of the 20s.
We were happy with the improvement last year, and now we've even continued to see more improvement, which is fantastic.
Yeah. This is excellent.
And with the response rate, at least according to Panorama, 24% is good.
Oh,
It is
yeah.
a good
That is
return
very-
rate for the schools that they've worked with, so.
Very high.
So I'll do the faculty. So first of all, I want to say I'm really proud of these surveys.
Yeah.
And I want to acknowledge Raul's leadership, and Jill, Liz, and Brianna and Roger. The team worked well on this and spent some time to really try to find something that is more timeless than not, and something that we could action off of. And I think that's, as I reflect on the last couple of years, we spent a lot of energy and time working on this stuff, but we would still come back and we would talk about, can we do something with this, and the wording of the questions. And so I think we've got something here that we can really build from. And so I just want to acknowledge the team on that.
Can I just add to that? And what we were doing before, we had made progress in terms of getting an outside vendor, but using it kind of out of the box. I think you guys have taken it to that next level of really having it pinpoint what we need to pinpoint.
It's good.
Or focus on what we need to.
Yeah,
It's
nice
great.
evolution, right?
Yes.
Took the right vendor,
Yeah.
figured out how to work with them, and kind of scheduled. Yeah, so it's a nice iteration.
Yeah.
So great work in terms of all the work that's been done before this group, and then on the team. So, Raul's suggestion was, pick a couple items to highlight. So there were a couple ones that caught my attention, more from a standpoint of leading indicators. And so if you look at just some of the opportunities, there's a, you know, you could spend a lot of hours really digging in on this. It's actually pretty fun. But one caught my attention was from the teachers, talking about the amount of competition is healthy. Only felt that 43% of the teachers felt that the amount of competition is healthy among the students. And that, if that's true, and it's unhealthy, then that could drive some bad behavior. We've talked in the past about students, some cheating and just things like that. And so just something to look at if the competition
Or there's
is...
a lack of consensus on the definition of healthy.
Well, that's probably an area of improvement, all those types of things. So
I mean,
think
in
that's
their
true.
minds, not
Yep,
ours.
could be, yeah, but that's clarity kind of drives more reliable results, so that's a good point, Chris. The other one that caught my attention, the faculty piece, was, you know, they were reflecting on the personal and professional life balance, and only 29% positive, and so that's a leading indicator of exits and people turnover, and so that caught my attention. There's a couple other, so much of these surveys are high. It's so great to read that it's easy to gravitate to some of those things, but when they're low, there's some low ones there, and that one caught my attention. I'll tell you on the positive places, some nice leading indicators here, and this was, you know, Dr. Lewis, this was so important to you and Ellen around the development, and it's really coming through, right? So 92% of the faculty felt supported from a development standpoint, and so that tells me that, you know, it's one thing to talk about, it's another thing to really back it up, think about the contract and all those types of pieces, and that's a leading indicator of retention, certainly. And then, you know, the other part that I've just heard so much from our administration around the administration teaching their employees with fairness and respect, about 89%, and I've never seen that in my tenure here. And so I know just as an individual, Dr. Lewis, how important that is to you. And so, so some great stuff there. So those are both leading indicators of engagement and retention, but the last one that I thought was just so special was that 98% of the faculty said that the tone the administration set for the culture at AMSA was positive. And that's just, I mean, it's just remarkable, frankly, as the word that I could come up with.
Well, and actually, I want to highlight on the previous one about respect, not only is it 92% favorable, there's nobody that responds to the survey that disagree with that thing.
Yeah.
Nobody believes that the treated disrespectfully, at least that responds to the survey.
Yeah, well said. So I think, so look, we've got, you know, always have work to do, no victory laps, as they say, but I'll say, certainly in my tenure here, it's been a leap. I mean, it's not even about statistically significant stuff, it's just remarkable, some of the changes. So let's fix the stuff that we need to fix, and let's, you know, maintain the things that are working, but I think it's all about actioning now. You know, if we don't action and really people feel we're doing something, then we're going to start to see the stuff drop.
So one thing that strikes me is that we also have some more forward motion. It's not just not just protecting our gains. I'm a little struck, just flipping through it, that strongly agrees are relatively low. And so, I mean, it's like, so we've come a long way, but we're not all the way. I would expect to see more strongly agrees, you know, as time goes on.
Good insight.
But there were no strongly disagrees, at least on the AMSA leadership page. No, like zero strongly disagrees.
Rick, were you going to say something too?
I was going to mention that first there's a parallel between the faculty and the teacher survey, which is good.
Family.
I'm sorry.
Faculty and
That's
family.
okay. It's late, we'll give you a
Yes.
pass.
Well, we did that on purpose, but.
So the other thing is, there is a lot of action that needs to be taken continually going forward, but a very nice thing is that when we had the survey a year ago, we saw really dramatic improvement. We're continuing to see that in those key areas. So that's a really good sign that it's, you know, the trust that's being built, all of that, it's being sustained.
Yeah.
It's not a gimme.
I agree.
You know, so that's great.
Well, just to,
Please.
just to reiterate what Mike said about the, you know, trust is fragile, and missteps and mistreatment can damage that trust. So, and I know Ellen and I think that very much the same way, how important it is for us to never, ever take any of that and any of this for granted. And each and every day is a day where we need to continue to build trust one-on-one in relationship with our staff, with our teachers, our counselors, our students, our parents, so that when it comes time next year, 2 years from now, when difficult decisions are made, those decisions are made and embedded in a broad field of trust, which makes such a huge difference.
It's powerful. I think it's just a powerful indication of just the influence that the administration's had and some of the changes that are going on. I would say my closing thoughts on this are, when you think about actioning, pick 2 or 3, line them up to some of the things, even if you reflect on your opening remarks tonight, there's some that you even mentioned the survey in there that really line up nicely in there that can just be reinforced over and over again. And then there's some literature out there that says the place to look at are those neutrals, get those neutrals into the positive. So that there's a natural tendency to just go to those dark places and to kind of disagree and strongly. It all matters, but what you really want to do is kind of get those neutrals to get into those top 2 boxes. So that's an indication of people who just, they're not quite sure which way to go, so.
I mean, this was, first of all, I do want to say thank you to the survey task force, because the fact that we didn't spend 15 minutes talking about that one first question is just wonderful, right? Like, what does this mean? Is this good or bad? What does engagement mean? So, no, that's wonderful. It is. Yeah, maybe. It's so relevant, though. I mean, like, it really is actionable results, I think. So this is the first year of this, but going forward, it will be much more useful. Next month, the team is going to give us all the comments, and I think that will be, or as soon as they can, right? As soon as it's available, to have the sanitized comments. And I do encourage, as part of the 60 minutes of pre-reading, to really read all of that, because we can have a little bit more of a focused discussion next month about what we are seeing. These survey results do sort of go into the evaluation for the executive director this year, so I mean, it was important to get this done, but I think that discussion will also help frame, okay, what are the things that we are seeing? Are there themes that you're seeing? What are the areas that the individual board members are reading about that they feel particularly concerned with? I think it would be useful to bring.
Will we get this electronically?
It's on board on track.
Yeah, this is all on board our track. Yeah.
Did we get an email alerting us to its availability?
Someone
No, that's
sent
just
this,
the board packet.
did someone send this around? Was this sent around before?
Yeah, it's on the agenda. You can click on it on the agenda.
Okay, yeah, that's what happened. It was uploaded into the agenda a couple of days ago. But you probably don't get a notification that it's there.
It's just part of the work documents.
There must be a way to share, yeah.
Well, now I know, look.
But now you know, now it's there, yeah.
So I'm assuming this will also be posted up to the AMSA website?
Right, so what we're waiting is to go through the comments.
Yeah.
Okay,
The full
and then it'll be
survey
all
results,
posted. And then the other question is, in terms of being able to access it, would people access kind of this PDF version, or is there access to like the
Yes, right
Panorama
now,
site?
the way I understand it is that right now they only allowed access to those of us that were on the call with Panorama last week. But once we go through the permissions for the comments piece, they'll put it the same way that the last year's is there.
Okay, so we can go in and
use those tools.
If you go in now, you'll see that. And we should acknowledge, by the way, Lynn McCluskey has been,
absolutely.
oh yeah, good, yeah, so Lynn has been a rock star through this process.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
Thank you, and checking back with them and
Absolutely, kept us on task and all that. We have just one more minute in our little thing. So, Brianna and Jill, did you hear anything from faculty or parents about the survey and at all? Or was there any?
Not really, actually, which surprised me. So I was a little anxious to see how many responses there was going to be. And I was really happy to see that there's 89. I thought that was great. And just based on, I was looking on some of the later numbers about the teaching, like the course workload, and there was a few who said not applicable. It was like 16 and 18 people, so I would assume that means non-teaching staff. So I'm glad that there's a lot of participation from that group too.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I So I only got input before we even finalized the survey. I sent it out to a few, probably 20-plus parents, so I got some great feedback. But then once the survey was out, I didn't hear anything negative or, so.
Okay. Thanks, good. Okay, now we are back to collective bargaining. So I guess a question I have, so Ellen, were you able to see the existing contract? Does it talk about periods or hours?
Yeah, it's period. So I think that's what Joe is wanting to do. Since it says period in the original, he wants to keep period in the MOA. So
it's not a change from.
So period is in our draft, so we could vote.
Okay.
Are you
Questions on
accepting
it?
questions?
Yes, question.
I didn't understand the tuition reimbursement.
Okay, you can ask the.
So it said from $35,000 to $50,000, but 2 courses a year at $2,000 a course.
That's, okay, so the
Didn't get it.
$35,000 is the total pool.
Oh, okay.
So we
Now I
increased
understand.
that to $50,000.
Okay.
You were thinking we were paying.
Yeah, we're not
So it's
paying
like,
it for
wow.
the teacher.
That's a lot.
When do they find time to school? That's not.
I have to say, the first time I read it, I thought that exact same thing, and I did a double take, and then I reread it, I'm like, oh, that must be the total.
Yeah.
I tried rereading it, but all I could see were the numbers.
Okay, in that case, just so this is a MOA that has been agreed between the task force and the task force, the negotiating task force of the teachers as well. The teachers will be voting next week. We can vote now, and then what happens is it goes into effect. If the teachers accept, if we vote and agree, and the teachers vote and agree, then it goes into effect immediately. Then they go into the contract itself, but this is in effect. But the contract year is actually August 24th, beginning, August 24th, for 2 years. So, just so everyone knows. This is it, essentially. Okay? So, with that, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay. Who seconded? Liz. All right. All in favor?
I abstain.
Okay, and just a note that, yes, Brianna is abstaining, and the motion passes unanimously. Great. Thank you, Brianna. Well done. So I do want to say, and publicly, that this year, the board did ask the school administration to take on the bulk of this negotiation, and they did it informally in a number of meetings directly with the negotiating team with the teachers. So this was very unlike past years where the board negotiated directly. This is largely due to the efforts of the administrative team, so.
They deserve another round of
I would say thank you to the board for the trust and encouragement and support.
Great. All right, good. So we should, the negotiating team, you'll let whoever needs to know that we approved it, right? Okay, governance.
10 minutes behind.
Yeah, we're 10 minutes behind. Okay, we're gonna make up.
Only 10 minutes.
No, we're making up because governance is done, right?
Done.
Wow, there's 10 minutes.
There's 10 minutes, right? Ed committee.
Okay, I will make it quick. So there are 2 things that really came up at the last meeting. First, we are moving forward with the student liaison for next year, so we will have a student liaison on the education committee. Ellen has been working with Mike Naraki and student government to determine who that's going to be. It will most likely be a junior, just because we thought the juniors would be more engaged throughout the entire year. Seniors tend to get a little off track, if you will. So we're very excited about having that. So that's one change. The other thing, we are working with our end of the year presentation, although I am getting the sense that next month's meeting is going to be very crowded. No? Okay, well, if there's room, we will know after our next meeting if we are ready to present. Otherwise, we'd push it to August. But I'll let you know after the next.
You'll let me know, okay.
No, the hope is that we'll be able to present, the idea is we're going to present a dashboard to all of you in terms of how the school is doing from an academic perspective, mostly. And we're going to be looking for feedback because this is really the first time we've done it. So we're looking at a whole host of different aspects of the academics, and we will be soliciting feedback so that going forward we can create a dashboard that's really useful.
Okay.
That's it.
Good, look at that. We just made up time,
There
just
you
like
go.
that. And now we get to move to the budget.
This is the best part.
Best
for last.
I say that in all my staff meetings.
And
I know you guys have been waiting for this all month.
Waiting for months, actually.
Just in time to break us off.
Hey, I got color.
Budget with color.
Budget with color.
Though these reviews are very interesting.
Yeah, a lot of, yeah, it is, it's fun.
Oh, look at this color. There's two colors.
There's two colors. Let me just.
No, red is good.
See if I can make
These are in our packets, right?
They are in the packets, yep. I'm just gonna try and make it as big as I can.
But in our packet, we don't have color.
No, you don't have color in the packet, because I did this at home today.
I know.
Right, so I'm making it as big as I possibly can here. Okay. So, before I get into the details of this, I just want to give you a lay of the land of what this looks like, what it is, and the assumptions that we've made in this budget. First and foremost, this budget was assuming that the collective bargaining agreement would be approved. So the numbers that we just approved are here and within these numbers. Secondly, this assumes that our real estate costs stand as they are today, which means that we own 165 Forest Street, and we are still leasing 199 and 201. Thirdly, this is the first time, and I'm just going to scroll down. So as far as I've been told, because this is the second budget I've seen since I started on the board, we are tracking towards net income of over $500,000. And this is the first time that a budget has been put in place with that high of a positive.
That's the first time I've seen it in 7 years.
Okay.
6 years.
So what I will say is this is still a preliminary budget. I mean, I should say, this is our budget as things stand today. Things can certainly change depending on what we do with real estate. Having that big of a cushion at the bottom is a good thing. Okay? So I'm going to scroll back up to the top. The reason I have yellow lines here is because that's where I'm going to focus my time.
Lucy?
Yes.
As you go through, I mean, this is part of your plan, I think we were projecting last year like a $300,000 deficit spend, and now we're at a $500,000 favorable spend. So will you help us understand as you go through, like how we could have an $800,000 swing in the budget?
Yep, actually, last year, it was a $17,000 positive spend.
But that wasn't what when the budget was set, we set it at a deficit.
No, that was the year before.
No, that was the year before.
Deficit.
It was the year before.
All right, so we've gone from basically flat to $500,000 favorable. So I just whatever you can do, I would just like to just know how we can kind of, how that goes.
It's in here.
Okay, good, thanks.
This is the exciting part. You can tell she's all excited.
Yellow and black.
And no red. Okay, so let me just start with tuition. We received from DEAS what the expected tuition would be for the next school year. We have received those numbers before, and the good thing is that the tuition has never come in below what they've said. So that makes me feel good about this number going into next year. I will also say that The number that we're reflecting here for our tuition is discounted by 1%. So we took what they sent us, which was like 14.4, and we discounted it by 1% just to be conservative, and we're starting there. What I'd like to say too is just keep in mind that this entire budget is based on a very conservative approach, and that goes right down the line, whether it is a revenue number or an expense number. We're taking a conservative approach across the board, okay?
So just to confirm, conservative means, in the case of income, we're lowering it, expenses, we're raising it.
Correct.
Okay. And then the second question is, you mentioned there was a 1% haircut on the tuition. In the past, have we?
Yes, every year, Tom has taken a 1%.
Okay.
So I learned well.
Okay, good.
And hopefully, this will land right on target. Line number 2, rental income. Well, what do you know? We got rental income. So that's $232,000 right there.
And can I ask, in terms of any of our income, so rental income, do we have to pay tax on that or anything?
We do not pay
We do
tax on
not.
that.
Okay.
No. Right?
That's correct.
Yes,
Okay,
that is
great.
correct. Grants and donations. This is up slightly, and the reason for that is we are, between our grants, our Title I, Title IIA, the total of all those comes in at about $177,000. Add on top of that the giving campaign, and we thought 225 was pretty much right around where we think we'll be for the next school year. The hope is really that we can bump this up and we'll be able to, raise additional funds above what we've done in the past and above what we've done this year. And as I go through this, just jump in with questions.
Yes.
Yes,
So,
you have one.
On the grants, one of the challenges that I know from the nonprofit world is grants that are program specific. Are there any restrictions in those grants other than the annual campaign for using that money for fundraising?
I don't have the answer. Is Liana here?
Yeah, she is.
She is?
They are. These are entitlement grants specifically. They follow special ed.
So there's a special ed grant, which is the bulk of that, so that those funds go to the special ed education department. And then there's Title I, Title IIA, those are restricted for those programs. And then the annual giving is basically unrestricted.
So the bulk of it is restricted.
Investment income. That is the interest we have made on the cash that we have had in the bank. As you all know, we just purchased a building, so we are assuming that that is going to decrease by about half. So that's why that has come down. I'm going to skip miscellaneous income because that is the same as it's been over the years. Just so you know, what's included in that is our rebates that we get from Land's End and O'Connor Studios. Nutrition income, again, this is staying pretty stable as compared to last year. This is the income we get for lunches, and there is a corresponding expense down below. Okay, so student programs, clubs. We booked this at about 111 based on the numbers that Liana got. We are, again, being a little conservative here, based on what we received for this school year. Testing and assessments, this has all been calculated based on the number of PSAT tests and 350 AP tests. Prom, same thing as it's been. Homework and media clubs, just being a little bit more conservative there. Field trips. We've brought that down because we expect there to be less field trips this year. There were a lot of field trips in this school year, and the expectation is that we're going to do less next year. Senior activities, that's come down. So each class raises money with dress down days and, let's see what the notes here. Dress down days and various fundraisers to cover the graduation for each class. This particular class that's going to graduate in 2019 does not have as much money in the bank as the previous class did, so that's why that is $6,000.
So this is matched to revenue, right, to expenses, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Student programs, that's about the same. That's the planners that the kids pay for. Athletic program, I'm going to hold on that one and come back to it. Student transportation income, again, we're being conservative here, but this is based on last year's transportation revenues received. So our total income that we're expecting for the school year is 15.4 million, as opposed to this past year of 14.5. So that's an additional $900,000 right there. So now I'm going to move down to expenses. Do people have any questions about revenue and income at this point?
So, just to summarize, so basically our primary change in, just reading numbers here, our primary, there's two things that are changed at the bottom line there. It's the additional rental income and the increase in tuition reimbursement.
Correct.
And everything else is...
Everything else is, plus or minus
Yeah.
about the same.
Stable.
That is correct. Okay, so salaries. Salaries and all the fringe.
Sorry, just to be sure how risky this is, rental income is, we know for sure that...
We have we're signing a lease, yes. Yep. Everything in the salaries is based on the collective bargaining agreement we just agreed to. The increase in payroll taxes is a direct correlation and percentage of the...
So listen, we're not anticipating changes in headcount, or any additional hiring?
Not at this
beyond
point.
replacing, okay.
Yes. Now, of course, that could change. We could make decisions through the year to decide that we need additional special ed teacher or an additional whatever. A development person, a second development person. Fringe benefits, this bump up is because we received a 13% increase in the cost of medical benefits this year, so that's why this is up.
And we pay 80% of the premium?
Liana, what percentage of the premium do we pay again?
71.
71%.
For individuals and families? For individuals and families?
Yep.
Same fraction.
Professional development, we budgeted a lot more than the teachers have taken advantage of in this school year. So we've brought this down based on what the expectations are of what the teachers will use next year. I also see that we have $60,000 in here for tuition reimbursement. This is going to need to change to $50,000, Liana, based on the...
No, because collective bargaining, there's 10,000 in there for non-collective bargaining. People that aren't in the unit.
Oh, there you go, you're right.
Right, yeah.
Yep, that's true.
You see, you already thought of that.
Yeah, you thought of it. No, Liana thought of it. Okay, under instructional supplies and equipment. The big change here is the special education department. That's going up pretty significantly. That, just so you know, is not just supplies. That is all expenses related to the special education department. So, for example, if we have to have an extended school year for a student, or if we have to make special purchases, if we have to hire special tutors, that falls within this budget. And based on the budget that we received from the director of SPED, we had to bump up that expense line item pretty significantly over last year.
So that's based on what she thinks she knows is going to need to be spent next year for...
Correct, and based on what we spent this year, which was more than what we were expecting to spend.
Okay, yeah. And that does not include personnel.
That does not include personnel, correct. Student program expenses, again, field trips are down. So basically the change here from 252 to 234 is really the difference in the expenses around field trips. The rest between club expenses and testing is really a wash between the two. Nutrition expense, again, that's the same as last year. I will say, though, that the expense is higher than the income, because we do have, we do pay for lunches for certain families. What is that called again? Free and...
Financial assistance.
Yes. So some students have financial assistance, and their lunches are paid for. Okay, so 4 kicks. I'm going to jump to here. As you can see here, the athletic facilities for the sports themselves is pretty stable as compared to this year. The rental, though, for our physical education classes, that went up by about 4% based on the agreement that we signed with 4 Kicks for this upcoming school year. So that's why that is up. And then the athletics expenses are up because the school needs to purchase new uniforms for 2 of the sports teams. One is lacrosse and the other one is basketball. The uniforms they've been using are very, very old and ragged, and those need to be replaced. I'm going to jump over now to, just because I know that we've heard over the years that our parents believe that they pay too much for athletics, and I just want to make sure that, you know, the board understands the amount of money that we subsidize for sports. So I'm just going to flip over to this Excel sheet and talk about what we're doing this year. First thing we're doing is we're going to a tiered rate system where the first student in a family who plays a sport per season, the cost is going to be $350 for that first student. Every second, third, fourth, fifth student in that family who plays a sport in that same season, the cost is going to be $300 per student. It was $320 last year, $310 the year before, $300 the year before that. Now you'll say, why is the income going down from 209 to 200? And the reason why is actually not because we're charging less, but we're expecting a lower number of students to participate, a pretty significant lower number of students that will participate in track and field and cross-country as compared to what we thought it would be for this past year. So that's why the income is down $9,000. It's not because the families and the students are paying less, it's that there are less students. In terms of uniform and equipment, refs, et cetera, we pay about $120,000. 4 Kicks is $138,000. The salaries related are $183,000. And
That's just coaches, right? Just coaches?
Leon, is this just coaches?
Coaches and athletic director.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And the transportation costs are expected to go up for 2018-19 school year. So the total amount that we pay out for our athletics is $535,000. So we subsidize $335,000 of that. And if you look at that,
You round it to 1,000 students, that's pretty much paying half and half.
It's close to half.
yep, yeah. So we subsidize 63%.
Well, would it make, I'm wondering whether the athletic director's salary should be counted in the athletic program or not for the purposes of this calculation. Would we have an athletic director if we had no sports program at all?
Would not.
Or,
We would not.
We would not.
So they should be included.
Remember, we have a separate PE
Right.
department chair now,
Okay.
so the athletic director literally is athletics.
okay, I think that was the piece that was.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, if we're comparing year over year,
We're subsidizing more and more.
we're subsidizing 60%. You know, it pretty much goes up and down, but, 60% is what we're subsidizing. So I just want you all to be aware of that. And I think that this is something we should have on hand for parents.
It's a good number to know.
It's a good number to know.
Because this question comes up time and again.
Right.
In terms of the question coming up, is there value in, I don't know what sort of forms people use when they're making their payments or inquiring about it? Is it worth specifying that, just as an FYI, AMSA subsidized 63% of the costs, or some statement?
That's not a bad idea.
That's not a bad idea at all.
Because it can
Just
just.
put it out on.
Put it on the plus
portals.
portal.
Put it on, like, when they pay, it
Yeah.
should be, in italics, so that parents can read
Yeah.
what the subsidy is.
Yep, I think just for transparency's sake.
Yeah.
It's probably a very good idea.
Yep.
And this is a strategic decision.
Yep.
We have a lot of old books in the math department, I know. Right? They're not related to online anything. They should all be replaced, but we have a fixed income here. Strategically, we've decided to allocate $335,000 to this activity as a board or as a school. I just want to make sure that we're aware that we are sacrificing other things for this larger number. All right, important things.
Does the board have any comments about that? I mean, so let's bring it to the table. I mean,
We're not buying a lot of new books. Okay, just saying.
It's hard to evaluate that without knowing more about what we're not buying. It's like, how old are the books, how...
Old.
Okay, now that we've quantified it. So,
I will say, though, that and Liana, you can correct me if I'm wrong, when we put out the, request for what the needs are from the teachers, are they putting forth a request for new books and we're saying, no, we can't afford them? We are not.
Yeah,
So-
we're not turning down
We're not
anybody's
turning down.
requests for textbooks. I mean, that's always an absolutely fundamental priority.
Okay, so we aren't doing this then in lieu of books?
We've worked very closely with department chairs to make sure that they get exactly what they need, and certainly when it comes to textbooks. that's the case.
I think it's a strategic question there, right? I mean, that's an
It
example,
is.
right, that is being given. I think there's a strategic question on a budget of 14 point, whatever,
14.5, I think.
14.5, right? This proportion is going to, we're choosing to subsidize athletics, and that is $335,000. That could go elsewhere, right? So we should just be aware of it.
Pauline, though, we're also forecasting a $500,000 surplus.
Yep.
Right, and a conservative budget, even though, and I know that real estate's out there. I mean,
Right.
one could say that this feels right to us, right, as a board, we want to be around that 63% mark.
Whatever, yep.
And then, this trues up, we true it up at some point and figure it out, and then there's a conversation that said, we're willing to take $100,000 of the $500,000 surplus, and where are the opportunities to invest?
Yep.
And then it's a conversation about what those things may be. I used the word binary before, I'm not sure it's this versus that. If we have a surplus, I think the conversation on these, once you chew it up, is saying, okay, so how do we feel about this $500,000 surplus?
Right, and I guess the strategic question is what's the right proportion? Because, yes, when you put it that way, books are probably less than $335,000, but $335,000 is 2% of the budget. So that means 98% of the budget is anything but that. Right? So it's all relative, but how do we answer the strategic question on how to allocate between athletics and academics?
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, why don't we finish the strategic question first? Mine's a different one.
Gene, were you about to say something?
No.
Or no? So I guess I would just throw this out that there is a strategic question. I don't know if we can answer that question right now. But just at a macro level, we're in line with what we've historically done. I think if you look at, just a general statement, if you look at the changing demographic and the potential for an increased number of the population for which I don't know if this is true, but I'm guessing, is it true that for an increased amount of the population, it's going to be more and more difficult to afford the amount that they have to pay for athletics? I mean, just from a family income perspective. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, I don't think we want to reduce this, right? Because this is important also just for a student to be whole and get into college, and so forth. So, I mean, I don't think we should be necessarily changing this up without being very deliberate about it.
And from a retention standpoint too, I mean, students have left because of athletics before, and I think even, some still do, especially that 8th to 9th grade. So if the cost of athletics went up, that number of students leaving for that reason could definitely go up too.
Right, because $350 for a sport is very high compared to public school. It's $120 at Hudson High.
Oh, really?
So, to play football, to play baseball, it's $120.
So a communications issue, which got brought up kind of in talking about it, explaining the charges to people. We don't publish a budget narrative that says, I'm just thinking about, like the question about, why we have a surplus, and the question about the football uniforms or whatever. The questions come up, again and again and again. And, we kind of improvise to answer them again and again. And it would be great if we could anticipate them and say, that we have made a decision to, you'll notice that we're, subsidizing, half the cost of the athletics.
That's a good idea, Chris. I think we
Budget
should do a
narrative,
budget
yeah.
narrative.
Oh, Jeff Bezos is going to be so proud of us.
Well, you can use Mike and record a video to, also Lucy could just talk for 5 minutes about things that we're doing.
Fun.
You got the next video.
You're on the next.
Yeah, I mean,
I told you that finance people are not public speakers.
But I think you do a great job of explaining that, and you could highlight some of those pieces, and
Mike will jazz it up.
yeah.
And it could go viral.
Jazz hands.
And a printed document, so we can read our speech every time we get asked the question.
That'd be great.
That's a great idea.
That is a good
Budget
idea.
narrative.
Good one, Chris.
All right, let me jump back.
You're on fire.
Just having a good moment.
Student transportation. The difference here, this is not just the busing and this, for schools, this is also the athletic transportation here. So the reason why this is up is, again, because we are expecting the athletic transportation number to go up in the next school year.
Does that change with fuel costs?
It doesn't, because we currently have a 3-year bus contract that was fixed 3 years ago. But
I'm glad you know these things, Polly. Okay, lease, cam, and taxes. So this is obviously down, and let me walk you through why it's down. So at this point, what this includes are the lease, cam, and taxes for 199 and 201 Forest Street. The rent that we were paying on 165 Forest Street is no longer there. So that has come down. In addition, our CAM charges that we used to pay have come down pretty significantly. They used to be about 18, am I right, Leanna? 13, and now they are $5,000 per month. So that's the difference there. However, on the flip side of that, for CAM charges, facilities costs we're expecting to go up. And the reason for that is because we're paying less on our CAM charges, and we will bear the burden of snow removal and all the CAM related to 165 Forest Street. So it's kind of a give and take there. Really, the difference here is the rent that we're no longer paying on 165.
So can I ask, in terms of the facility costs, they've gone up, but our CAM came down, kind of net, are we ahead or behind because of that?
I think we are ahead. The question is, we don't know what our own CAM charges are going to be yet on 165, so I think that, again, this is super conservative.
Okay.
So we're making sure here that we're covered.
Okay. I mean, it should naturally be cheaper. You're not going to be giving us services at a discount.
Yes, we will have the snow. I think we'll have the snow removed a lot quicker going forward.
Right.
The, salted sidewalks. Utilities are what they are, there's no big change there. Information technology, this is down because we now have a full-time network administrator, and we do not expect to be paying a consultant in the 2019 school year. Non-instructional supplies. This difference is for the nurse's office, I think, is the biggest factor here on what the needs are for the upkeep of the supplies in the nurse's office. Advertising and marketing, we're expecting to do 3 alumni events in the 2019 school year, so that is why that's up by $10,000.
Excuse me.
Auditors, we're expecting to be the same as this year. We bumped it up by $2,000, but we're being conservative there. Legal, we have brought down by about $100,000 because we are very much hoping that our legal costs in 2019 are going to come down dramatically. I actually think this is, it's possible that this could be conservative as well, but you never know.
Yeah.
You just never know. Other operating costs, the biggest change here on why this is going down is because we're decreasing the amount of money we spend on dues and memberships. That's really the biggest reason there.
$40,000 in dues and memberships?
No, it's not, that was the note I had, and I had, how much is the membership for the charter school?
We're ending that.
Exactly, but it was
But it was
$20,000.
$20,000,
It was
yeah.
$20,000. So that's 20 of it. Insurance expense is up because now we hold the insurance policy for 165. And our new insurance rates are based on our loss rates. Depreciation expense is up because we are depreciating now the building next door. And this leaves us with a total expense budget of 14.9, which has us at a positive of $536,000. Again, it's a good number to start with. It gives us wiggle room based on what our needs are for, the buildings in general. And that's where we are.
Thank you.
Does anyone have questions about the details here?
Roger?
Do we have a capital budget for next year?
For the purchase of like...
I'm thinking particularly planned upgrades to 165.
Well, we have to figure out what we're going to do here with 199 and 201 first, I think, before we decide what the budget is going to be for 165.
But
So that really needs to be figured out first because that's going to affect our cash balance.
right, yeah, I understand they're all tied together, but I was sort of surprised to not see any capital budget projections for the work that we need to do at 165.
Well, some of that's going into this year. It's just happening.
Okay, so, but
It's
we're going to
expensed.
spend,
It's
we're going to
getting
spend some amount of money in the next school year on 165.
Right, which will be capitalized and then depreciated.
Right, but where would I find that budget number?
That is not here
Not
yet.
in here.
Okay,
Not in here yet.
That's why we need to have some wiggle room, right?
right.
And we need to figure out what we're doing with 199 and 201 first.
When would we expect to have thoughts on that, on the capital budget?
Not until we figure out what we're doing with 109 and 201. Because we can't, let's assume that the cost to purchase is,
Don't even throw
Don't
it
even
out
throw
there.
it
Don't throw it
out
out
there.
there.
We get into an executive session.
Yeah,
Right.
we can,
Year. Yeah.
okay. But my concern is that some people would look at this budget and say, wow, you got $500,000 extra, why are we not fully funding athletics and doing
Our
X?
budget narrative is going to explain this.
Right, so,
and it's because we don't have
We don't have a
resolution.
plan.
We can't
Yeah.
put a budget
Right.
together and say,
Right.
so this is how much we're going to put down for our capital budget for 165 when we have no idea.
right. So I think having the budget narrative to say, that
It excludes.
it excludes a capital plan for the
Yes.
campus.
It'll get added when we have clarity.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
We'll modify the budget when we have clarity
We will
on
modify it.
the capital plan for the campus.
Correct.
But I think Finance Committee felt that this is why they're presenting such a conservative budget.
In terms of another strategic point, all right, you look at the number on the lower right, 13.6 million. Look at the number on the left, 14.9. We're layering in over $1.2 million of costs, which are going to be very hard to take out if we have to. And unfortunately, the tuition is something that we never really know what we're going to have till the end of the year when it's too late. So strategically, the board should know, putting in a lot of expense here, which is hard, it's very sticky.
It's $500,000 because the 13.6 is last year. So 14.4 is this year.
So are you suggesting that we should have a discussion around where would we cut if we had to?
No, I'm just sort of raising awareness that there's lots of stuff that we're putting in here.
What Jean is saying too is that we've made decisions in our collective bargaining agreement to put our teachers first, and that has a financial effect here. And that will affect how we move forward with our real estate and facilities.
the numbers are coming down, right?
Right,
Not easily.
right.
Is that what you meant, or did you meant the other way around?
I'm sorry?
Well, is that what you meant?
Yeah, part of it, yes.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any other questions? So again, this is like I said at the beginning, this is a budget prepared with assumptions and questions that we don't have the answers to yet, but we needed to put something down on paper because we can't go into the next school year without some type of budget. Hopefully, the questions will be answered as soon as possible. And when they are, we will have to revisit this, and we'll have to look at a revised plan for the 2019 school year.
Yeah, so as long as everyone's aware that this is going to get revised at some point in the year. Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve budget as presented.
So moved.
Okay, Liz, a second?
Second.
Okay, Brianna? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously.
Is that Roger or Dan?
This is Rhiannon.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Leon.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
This was
Leon.
a lot of
Very
work.
helpful.
Thank you, Liana.
Thank you, Leanna.
Thank you, Leanne.
And here too, I'd like to thank the administration because they actually prepared a couple of versions of this, and so there is a more conservative version as well, right? So that thought process happened. If we found out that it's vastly more expensive, then there is a plan.
Yes, we do have a Plan B.
All right, so we're going into executive session to discuss litigation strategy, consider the purchase and lease of real property, and also to enter into contract negotiations with non-union personnel. We are not discussing collective bargaining. We are not. And because doing so in open session would be detrimental to our position, and we will not reconvene. Motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Okay, Liz?
I second.
Lucy, second. We need to do roll call vote. Jean?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. We are going to invite Ellen and Lisa O'Connor to join us and actually Liana to join us for the first section.